Please rise for invocation by Reverend Susan McCaffrey of Grace Episcopal Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I thought I saw her sneak in. Did I not see her? Okay, I did not then. Well, in that case, we'll use a silent invocation.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk call the roll?
Councilmember Ford.
Present.
Councilmember Finley.
Here.
Councilmember Stoltenberg.
Here.
Vice Mayor Baxter.
Here.
Mayor Burnett.
Here. Item 4, Wall of Fame recipient Dorothy Huckel. A proclamation of the City of Port Orange, whereas Dorothy Huckel was born September 20th, 1946 in New York City, New York, and she attended Hunter College, where she graduated with her bachelor's degree in 1967. She later attended Columbia University, graduating with her master's degree in 1970, and graduated from the St. John's University School of Law in 1978 and began practicing law. And whereas in 1988, Huckel moved to Florida, initially settling in Ponce Inlet, where she served as a councilwoman from 92 to 94. She later moved to Port Orange, wisely I might add, serving as its vice mayor from 98 to 2000 and as mayor from 2000 to 2004. Whereas Dorothy Huckel was a Republican member in the Florida Senate who represented parts of Volusia County area from 2012 until her death in 2018. And whereas in July of 2017, in unanimous vote, the Port Orange City Council made the decision to rename the former Port Orange Police Department to the Dorothy L. Huckel City Center Annex, located at 1395 Dunlawton Avenue in Port Orange. And whereas on September 28, 2018, Huckel announced that she would not seek re-election as she was entering hospice care due to complications with cervical cancer. She died from the illness on October 2nd, 2018. And whereas on February 22nd, 2019, the City of Port Orange commemorated the opening of the Dorothy L. Huckel City Annex with a ribbon-cutting ceremony. Now therefore I, Donald O. Burnett, Mayor of the City of Port Orange, Florida, do hereby present this proclamation in honor of Dorothy L. Huckel. Maybe I should have taken a breath and had a drink of water. In recognition of her outstanding accomplishments, her dedication, and her service as a politician and leader in Volusia County. And with my signature and the seal of the city, it is so declared on this day that Dorothy Huckel will forever be remembered in the Port Orange Wall of Fame. And with that, a very special person, her son Jonathan. Jonathan, can you hear me?
Yeah, Mayor, I can hear you great.
Jonathan Huckel is on the line.
On line 12.
Jonathan, first of all, I want to thank you for giving us so much of your mother over the years. I know that from my own experience, that's time away from family for public service, and she did right and did well, and I know that that means everybody in the family has to give.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I know I've been to my fair share of Tuesday night council meetings over the last 25 years, and this is a tremendous honor for her and for us, and I'm thankful to you, Mayor, the council, Christine, and everyone else for making it happen for her.
I appreciate it, and we so much appreciate everything your mom did for our community.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Council comments? Scott?
No way to top that, Mayor. I think you've said it all there, and her service is well recognized throughout the city, so good honor.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's well deserved. She's going to go down as a legend, and this is one of those things that will permanently recognize her as one of those legendary people.
Absolutely. Chase?
I agree.
Marilyn?
Agree.
You all have a lot to say about that matter. All I have to say about it is it was a long time in coming.
Yep.
This took a lot longer than I thought it would take to get it done, and hopefully in the next 365 days we've got one more coming. Jonathan, thank you very much. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Mayor. I can't wait to come down and visit us soon.
Can't wait to see you. Thanks. And that brings us to awards, the fire department recognition. We have one or two or more of the department here.
Award ceremony for police. Number 5?
Booted.
Oh.
Rescheduled.
Okay. I didn't know that, sorry.
Good evening. We've got one of the members here tonight with us, and I'll explain the situation, what we're doing these awards for. On October the 24th of 2020, at 6:21 p.m., Engine 74, along with multiple other fire units from New Smyrna Beach Fire and Volusia County Fire, were dispatched to a plane crash that occurred in a pond in the Venetian Bay subdivision. En route to the call, firefighter paramedic Jody McCraney volunteered to go into the water if needed. Engine 74 arrived first on scene, and Luna Bella Command was established by Lieutenant Tony Cowan, who then went to the lakeside to assess the situation as driver engineer Richie Ott helped paramedic McCraney don a life vest and grab a flotation buoy and proceed quickly to the shoreline. The tail section was the only visible part of the plane, visible with 2 people clinging to the plane as it appeared to be sinking. Yelling to the people, it was determined they were not injured, and they were the only 2 people on the plane. With assistance from driver engineer Richie Ott, firefighter Jody McCraney was in the water heading out to the plane in just over 2 minutes of their arrival. Firefighter McCraney arrived at the plane and gave the buoy to the female, who was frantic and stated she could not swim. Firefighter McCraney stayed with the victim until a bystander on a surfboard came out to them and assisted them to the shoreline one at a time. A lifeguard from Volusia County Beach Patrol also arrived and paddled out to them to offer assistance. Everybody made it to the shoreline without incident. Although water rescue isn't something we do on a regular basis, it is still something we are called upon to perform at a moment's notice. Without hesitation, firefighter McCraney was in the water heading out to the victims. We all know Jody used to compete in Ironman competitions, and we have heard him say he could swim like a dolphin. But by his own admission, that was a long time ago. Driver engineer Richie Ott, who's standing here before you, did an outstanding job getting the crew there quickly and safely on the shoreline and by setting up lighting and then assisting Lieutenant Cowan with suiting up in case other rescuers were needed in the water. Unfortunately, 2 of the members that we're recognizing tonight couldn't make it. Lieutenant Cowan was unavailable, and firefighter paramedic Jody McCraney was leaving out of town on a Christmas vacation. But for the efforts put forth by that entire crew working the night of November the 24th, we are awarding Lieutenant Cowan and driver engineer Richie Ott a unit citation award. For the heroic efforts put forth by firefighter Jody McCraney, we are awarding him an award of heroism. So good job.
Outstanding. Get a picture. Outstanding.
Group photo if we could, please. Thank you.
Somebody going somewhere. I'm going in the back. Bigger camera. Outstanding.
Appreciate all you guys.
Outstanding.
There we go. Yeah.
You always knew the right moves with her.
That's right. Thank you, Mayor.
That's something. That was Lindsay Swindle. Lindsay Swindle. Can't talk tonight. Longtime legislative aide for Dorothy Huckel, and I did not see her in the audience. Otherwise, I'd have made her say something too. Consent agenda. Public comments on consent agenda items. There being none, may I have a motion to approve the agenda for the evening?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda for the evening is approved. May I have a motion in regards to the consent agenda?
Motion to approve consent agenda items 9 through 19.
Second.
I have a motion and a proper second for items 9 through 19 on consent for approval. All, call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Patrick.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. And just like that, we are to item 20. Spouses Backing the Blues second annual golf tournament announcement. Jean. Nice.
Hi, Port Orange. So Spouses Back in Blue, we wanted to personally come invite all of you guys to our second annual golf tournament. It's going to be May 1st of 2021. Due to COVID, ours got canceled this year. So we would just like to come and personally welcome all of you and ask you if you would come out and just come play golf for a day, spend time with Spouses Back in the Blue, and just kind of see what we're doing for 2021. Hopefully next year is a little better than this year. It was a little hard for us this year. But on a positive note, ending with why our golf tournament is going to be really important next year, Jean is going to share what we're doing and hopefully going to be able to make next year even better than this year.
Hello, I'm Wayne Jean. I am a citizen plus an officer of Port Orange. I'm the founder of Spouses Back in Blue. Please come out, play some golf, have some fun with us, have fun with the citizens that play golf with us. This year, we didn't do fundraisers. We did one, Culver's. They're very generous to us, and they're also very supportive of the local police department. We also have been honored that the Port Orange Police Department has invited us to join with them in we're not doing a shop with a cop, but Cops for Christmas.
Nice.
So this year the Port Orange Police Department has, I believe it's 40 families as of right now, over 30 kids. We have been given the privilege of helping them raise money, and also that we found 3 families that didn't have Christmas trees. So we went out and purchased Christmas trees. We've delivered 2 of those Christmas trees, set them up just a little bit, let the kids come home and do the rest of it. Today was a pretty great day with it because we got to set up a Christmas tree and also deliver 2 beds to a family. The lady who will remain unnamed, she had, a bad time, and both her children didn't have a bed. So we was able to give her 2 beds that were donated from another family. It looks like this is going to be a repetitive thing, so hopefully we'll be involved with it next year also. And a part of our fundraisers and a part of our golf tournament, this is what we're here for, to support law enforcement, their families, but also the community. If we can't come together as a community, then it's pretty sad.
Especially this time of year.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we hope you come out and enjoy the golf fun that we had the last time, Mayor Burnett. And we're looking for Stiltner to come out, and this time maybe he can give us more money.
It cost me money last time. I wasn't even there. I'm not even so sure that it was all valid, but
Well, you know,
I
the
honored it.
camera tricks, right?
Yeah, I'm sure.
No. I put the ball
If
legitimately
it's
on the
going to
green.
cost me money this time, I'm going to be there to see it myself. We'll just
He
leave it
put
at
the
that.
ball right where you told him to, right on the green, and he put it in the hole. So
Only
Right.
one all day. It had to be
Alright.
the one that you said you'd pony up for.
We'll see.
Wayne, have they refilled all the divots the mayor left? Or is that still a work in progress?
I think that's some taxpayer money might help us on that. No, but it's a great time. This year it will be at Cypress Head
Oh,
Golf
okay.
Course, so it's going to be a great time. And not only that, if you feel generous this time of the year for Christmas to help us with help the Port Orange Police Department and Spouses Back in Blue raise money to provide these families with not only toys and Christmas trees, furniture, but also food. On our Facebook site, there is a donate button, and
What's
you can donate.
the name of the Facebook page so people can
Spouses
find
Back
it?
in the Blue.
Spouses Backing the Blue. That's the name of the
Yes.
Facebook page.
Yes, sir.
And they can find all the information they need right there.
Even my personal phone number if they've got any questions.
That's going out. Chase, questions, comments?
Yeah, there's a couple things just to learn a little bit more about it. How many teams you looking to field?
What did we have last time? We had like 75 people last.
So 120 people. So teams of 4. So there will be breakfast, there will be lunch. So
And other
it's
things.
$80 a person, or do you have the price for the team?
No, it's just $80 per person.
$80 a team?
No, $80 per person.
I mean,
not $80 a
person.
team.
Excuse
Yeah.
me.
And then on the Cypress Head website, you can actually sign up and do everything on there. There's a whole sponsor on there.
I was
Everything
gonna
is
ask
on their
that,
website.
too. Okay.
They're awesome to
Excellent.
work with. They've got it all put together.
What's the date one more time?
May
May
1st.
1st. So you're going to want to come back in roughly.
May the 1st.
You're going to
First.
kind of want to come back in 60 days to remind everybody.
Absolutely.
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
just
Yes,
those
pitch it
digital
again.
calendars.
There you go.
We're going to have a little fun. We'll have a Atlantic band member there to do the national anthem. We'll have a Port Orange Honor Guard and Spruce Creek High School Honor Guard will mix in and present the colors. So we're going to have fun. We're going to kick it off good, and we'll have a blast during the game. So
All right.
come out and join.
Maybe you can get one of our local musicians to perform.
I'll be there.
Marilyn,
Perhaps.
comments, questions?
None at all. It's a great organization, and I think the work they do is very needed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, ladies, that's it. Thank you very
Outstanding.
much.
Thanks for what you
Thank
guys
you.
do.
Appreciate everything that you do. And for some strange reason, my wife is in the audience, but Halifax Health Port Orange update. Ms. Joni Hunt has come to see us. Why don't you bring your gang up?
I would be honored to. Good evening. Robin, can you help me get the presentation up? I'm sorry, I don't know how. Is it already up here? Is that it?
Yep. Should be.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Thank you.
And then I feel switch TVs and you'll be good to go.
Wonderful. Look at that. Good evening. I'm Joni Hunt, Director of Government Affairs for Halifax Health. Thank you so much for the opportunity to update you on Halifax Health, Port Orange, and COVID-19. And I'd like to start by introducing my Halifax Health colleagues who are here with me tonight. First of all, Joe Petrock, the Executive Director of the Halifax Health Foundation. And with him is his boss, this year's 2021 Chairman of the Halifax Health Foundation, Dr. Michelle Carter. Next to her is Kathy Crotty. She's the 2021 Chairman of the Halifax Health Associates. Ben Eby is the Executive Director of Halifax Health Hospice, also headquartered here in Port Orange. The Honorable Anita Burnett is our Coordinator of Interventional Radiology. And presenting tonight are Ann Martirano, who is our Chief Communications Officer and Administrator of Halifax Health Medical Center of Port Orange, and Dr. Margaret Crossman, our Chief Medical Officer. Oh, thank you, Ann.
You never travel light.
Right? It's a great team to be a part of.
Well, good evening, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you this evening. And let me tell you, without this group of people around me, Halifax Health would not be the great organization that it is today. It really takes a team and a village, as they say, to get done what we have to get done. And before I go into my presentation in earnest, I would like to also say that seeing the firefighters and the police here and everything, we could not do what we do without them. We've considered them an integral part of our team when we talk about Halifax Health, because it's the firefighters and the EMTs and the policemen and women who help us every day, bringing patients to us, helping us with patients in need every day. And they are just a critical part of what we do. So I would like to go on the record as thanking them myself for everything they do for us. So what I would like to do this evening, very briefly, is to kind of give you a state of the union, if you would, for Halifax Health Medical Center of Port Orange. And then also, with Dr. Crossman, give you an update on kind of where we are with COVID-19, what the future might look like, and just so you have a sense of where we are in today's world with COVID-19. And I'd like to start, if I could, with a little bit of history, because some of you may not have been around here from the beginning, as some of us were, when we actually started our work here in Port Orange. We actually started here in 1992 with this building that is today the hospital. But at that time, it was an outpatient center. It had an urgent care center, it had physicians' offices, outpatient surgery, outpatient lab, imaging, those kinds of things. And the reason for that was in those days, the regulations around hospitals, part of the regulation had to do with the fact that you had to have a certain amount of population in an area to be able to be awarded a CON, a certificate of need, to have a hospital. It's kind of hard to believe today, but Port Orange didn't have that kind of population at the time. It was considered a small town at that time. But we knew, and the city leaders knew with great foresight, that we were going to have that population and that this town needed and wanted a hospital of its own. And so we started in that building in 1992 with those services, and then in about 2003, I believe, or 4, we were awarded that certificate of need because of the conditions of Port Orange had changed. And we retrofitted that building into an inpatient hospital, which I had the pleasure and honor of doing, which was kind of a once-in-a-lifetime thing. You know, that doesn't happen very often when you get to start a new hospital. And so that was a great treat and a great honor. But we were very, very committed then and very committed now to Port Orange and the health of our citizens here. And so that's why we're here today and continue to grow. So today, I am pleased to be able to tell you that we are a full-service hospital. You can see in this list we have intensivists, hospitalists, cardiology, anesthesia, surgery, orthopedics, palliative care, hospice care, all of those things that you consider essential in a community hospital. The things that we don't have, if somebody talks to you, would be open heart surgery, high-intensity neurosurgery, those kinds of things that are done at our main campus in Daytona Beach. And the reason for that is very important. You want to go somewhere where somebody does that kind of surgery every day, multiple times a day. You don't want to go to a place that does it once or twice a week or once or twice a month and give yourself or your family member to them. You want to go where the experts are and they're doing this every day. And then that kind of high acuity, high intensity kind of work, that's where you want to go. So we do transfer those patients. But for the most part, just about anything that you might need can be done at our hospital right here. And we're growing in that respect. We have great community physician leaders in all of the major departments within Halifax Health who are very much committed to making sure that Port Orange reaches its potential and does everything it should do for this community. Give you a little bit of numbers. You may not be aware how we've served Port Orange over this last fiscal year of 2020. This is Halifax Health in total. We have served the Port Orange residents. We've had 18,704 visits to our hospital here in Port Orange in this past year, which is quite a bit. We've had 14,000, you can see, to the medical center in Daytona. We've served over 1,200 in oncology, our rehab unit over 600 visits, Baker Act, pediatric Baker Acts and adult Baker Acts of over 500 visits, and then a sundry of others. So we are serving over 36,000 community members just in this past year. And that's great. We're happy to do that, and we're glad to do that.
Can you clarify one quick thing for me on that
Sure.
slide? So That's not indicating that 4,000 more people came to the Port Orange facility than the Daytona facility, right? Am I misunderstanding?
Yes, it is. It's saying that in that last year, we had visits from Port Orange at this hospital.
This is just Port Orange, okay, I apologize.
Yes.
My
Port
apologies.
Orange
Got
residents
it.
came here 18,000 times.
So
and
all
14
Port Orange
go.
residents, 18,000 came to
Yes.
this one, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
14 went to the other one.
And before you flip that again, I just want everybody to take a look at not just the adult, but the pediatric Baker Act numbers. That is a lot of work.
Yes.
That's a lot of
It's
work.
a sad number. We don't like to see
Yeah.
those, but
No.
we are there for them.
Thank you for clarifying.
Mhm. One thing that we are seeing that I want to point out to you, and I want to hopefully stress to you tonight, if nothing else, these are the emergency room visits to the Port Orange emergency room in this last year. As you can see, you get to the middle there in the month of March, I think you can see it. March, it starts to go down. April, it takes a big dive. Well, that's when COVID hit. And as you know, first of all, hospitals were not allowed to do elective procedures during those first months of COVID in order to protect our PPE, our personal protective equipment. Also, people were scared. People were afraid to come to hospitals. So you can see that big dip in that April time. And as you can see, as we've gone up through September, it's starting to slowly climb. But it's not climbing to where it was with the blue bars, which was the year before. That's a great concern to us because what we see today, and you're going to hear more about our COVID numbers, but besides our COVID numbers, what we're seeing is a greater increase in other illnesses, other conditions that people are waiting too long to come to the emergency room and get care because of their fear of being in the hospital. And unfortunately, we're seeing a lot more deaths and a lot more serious illness of other conditions than we did with COVID. So the message is, don't hide from your health. If you need help, come to the hospital, go to your doctor. Hospitals and doctors' offices are safe. They're probably safer than anywhere you go these days. They are safe and you need to be taken care of if you have a need, so don't hesitate. We are very proud with Halifax Health that our mission, first and foremost, is to take care of everyone in our community, whether they can pay for their care or not. It's been that way since 1928 and it's that way today, and we're very proud of that legacy. So I thought you might like to get an idea of what our uncompensated care at cost, not our charges, that's our actual cost, is for the last year. As a system, this past year, we gave $56 million of uncompensated care. People who came to the hospitals, came to our services without insurance or no ability to pay, we gave $56 million of care for that uncompensated care. I want to point out, that is more than all of the other hospital systems in our county combined, who are also taxing districts or not, county combined. And we're very proud of that. That's what we're here for. In Port Orange alone, I thought you might want to see that we have given over $11 million in uncompensated care to our Port Orange residents. So there are people, as we know, as you know better than most, in need. And people need health care, and they may not have a job, and they may not have insurance, but we are here to support them, whatever location at Halifax Health that might be for them, and we're very happy to do that. So the future. We're kind of excited at Port Orange. One of the problems with retrofitting a hospital into a building is you don't have a lot of places to go, and if I had to design it like a house, I would have designed it a lot differently, but we had to do what we had to do. But we are very busy. Our emergency room has 20 beds. That's a pretty small emergency room. We see over 30,000 patients in that emergency room every year, and that's a lot of people coming through. 20 beds is not a lot, and we have a smaller waiting room. We don't like to have people wait if they don't have to. So we're trying to expand a little bit. So we are embarking this year, coming up, on expanding within our walls as much as we can. We'll be adding about 8 new beds to the emergency room, give us 28 beds, which does a lot with throughput. Will help us a lot to be able to take care of people quicker and more effectively. So we're excited about that. As you know, we have an urgent care center going up across from the pavilion very soon, so we're excited to have that presence as well. And we have an urgent care center up in Daytona Beach Shores, which we are just opening up very soon as well. So we're happy to be able to serve the minor and the not so minor needs as much as we can. So again, my message to you tonight is, first of all, thank you. Thank you and those who came before you for inviting us to become a part of Port Orange community. We have been so for many, many years, and we're happy to be there, and we love the community. And also, again, to help spread the word. Do not hide from your health. Do not go where you need to go to get medical attention if you need it, because the future is looking better for COVID, and we certainly don't want to have people who don't necessarily need to have a bad outcome end up with one. So I want to thank you for your time tonight to listen to me. And at this point, it is my privilege to introduce Dr. Margaret Crossman, our Chief Medical Officer for Halifax Health.
Thank you, Ann. And Ann and I will be happy to take questions at the close of my comments. So I think I'll take this off as well. It's easier to be heard when the mask is off, right? So as Ann said, I'm Dr. Crossman, Margaret Crossman, Chief Medical Officer, and I have the great honor and privilege of sharing just a little bit about our special care unit for our COVID patients. So you see here some of the pictures from inside the unit. This was an old GI lab that was also a community clinic on the base of our hospital, in the ground floor of our hospital. And when we heard that COVID was coming our way, we knew we would need a special area to keep patients cohorted and to have a dedicated staff. And so our hospital engineer, Jacob Naguib, did a beautiful job helping us redesign and retrofit, if you will, this area of the hospital. And so we turned it into a special care unit with 30 beds. It was designed for efficiency and safety, had 100% airflow, outside air that was servicing it, with 10 to 12 air exchanges per hour, a very, very neat unit, central nurse station that helped them see everything they needed to see. Each bed was fully equipped and is able to take care of patients on ventilators as well. So this was in addition to the rest of our hospital, which has, of course, the medical, surgical, and other critical care areas. This was a way for us, again, to cohort these patients and keep them together. One of the people who stepped first into this unit with our patients to admit them was Dr. Kent Harmon. He's the Director of Critical Care Services at Halifax, and he has been there from the start, basically leading the charge and still caring for our COVID patients to this day. Of course, he's joined by hospitalists, other intensivists, other specialists as needed, and certainly a host of nurses, respiratory therapists, radiology, lab people, environmental services, and a handful of other service lines that have continually exposed and dedicated themselves to this unit and the care of these patients. So we're very proud of those. And one of the things that I'll say is we know that across the country, many hospitals have had to resort, especially for nursing, to travelers, if you will, those who are not necessarily a part of the community staff. And we've been very fortunate in that while things have been very busy and very tight at times for our staff, we were able to utilize our own staff. You can see some of our nurses there. They're all locals. I think we had to use no more than maybe 5% of agency or traveling nurses, and that's something we've not done before. Other places, I understand, needed 30% of their nursing staff to be travelers. So I'm really proud of this unit, the care that's been given. The care, as you know, is largely supportive. There are many breakthroughs and things that have come out, but one of the best, of course, was actually just the steroid dexamethasone that helped improve survival. There are many others that I could speak to. If you have any questions, I'm happy to later, but that was really one that did make a difference. And then supportive care is really the key here. As far as our capacity, our hospital bed and ventilator capacity, you know, I will tell you that we, in planning for what could happen in the way of a surge, this unit was a godsend. And it certainly took care of the bulk of our patients. We soon learned that while it can hold and take care of 30, 20 is a more comfortable number in there for spacing purposes. And so we have other areas throughout the hospital systems that can help keep dedicated and cohorted patients and staff caring for them. But our bed and ICU bed, critical care beds were all, you know, fine at the time. Even at our busiest time for COVID admissions, which was July, we still had sufficient capacity. This just really put us in good shape to be able to expand. Our protective gear, you know, we did what we could to be good stewards. We reused our N95 masks according to the CDC guidance that was given, and we were very cautious and careful about our protective gear. And we were fine. We've been through that. We are prepared now, and we have been prepared. We had terrific leadership and a multidisciplinary team led by Alberto Tinio, who was our Chief Operating Officer, did a wonderful job keeping everybody focused and doing the next right thing as everything unfolded. I'd like to just briefly go over the numbers. At this point, within the Halifax system, we've cared for, this will say, I think, about 530, but as of now, it's probably closer to 550 patients that were hospitalized with COVID as their diagnosis. You can see that our busiest month, as far as these numbers reflect hospitalizations, COVID hospitalizations in that given month. So you'll see in July, that was our heaviest month for COVID admissions, and our maximum census of patients in any given day was just over 40 during that time. So we have 28 COVID patients admitted to our hospital facilities. That includes Port Orange, a few in Deltona. Most of them, however, are in our main Daytona campus, and 28 of those admitted throughout our system, with 5 currently on a mechanical ventilators. So that's where we are today. We've been hovering between 20 and 25. We were down as low as maybe 15 at one point, and we're back up, as I said, to 28 today, but it's not gone anywhere near where we were in July. And there's lots of things that I would love to share with you. A lot of hot topics, in fact, right now, but I'm going to close with just this one, because I know this is one of the hottest, and that is vaccines. Now, you don't need to understand everything on this slide, and what I've done is just tried to highlight the different types of vaccines that are out there. Most of them are using an older technology. There are actually over 200 vaccines in development, about 50 of those in clinical trials, and I've pulled out the top 5. The 5 contenders for the United States. And you can see that AstraZeneca and Janssen and Novavax over there on the right side of your screen in the gray and the yellow are using technology that's been around for a long time. They're a little behind, though, as far as being able to manufacture and push this out because of the way they're developed and what they require. They're a little behind the newer technology, which is the RNA-based vaccine. We talk about it as gene-based therapy, and that is your Pfizer and your Moderna, and those are the 2 that are making all the headlines right now, most of the headlines. These are gene-based therapies. As I said, the Pfizer is a little ahead of even the Moderna as far as getting FDA emergency use authorization at the end of last week. So Pfizer vaccine was actually distributed nationally for use, and as of yesterday, we had 5 pilot sites throughout the state of Florida, pilot hospitals, who received the Pfizer vaccine and have started vaccination. So it's an incredibly exciting time right now to have a vaccine in less than a year from when we figured out what we were dealing with is just, I can't imagine something like this. So we expect that Moderna will be right on the heels of the Pfizer vaccine, and probably later this week, FDA will give it its emergency use authorization after due process. And so we hope at Halifax to be receiving vaccine in the next week or so. And then our priority, according to all the guidance that we've been given, is to be our frontline healthcare workers, especially those at increased risk for exposure to COVID, to this virus, and those at increased risk of progressing to severe disease. So that's our tier 1 priority. And again, much more that I can say, but I'll just close with some words from Scott Rivkees, the Surgeon General for the state of Florida. He, this morning on a state call, closed by saying, this week is the start of the path forward and out of this pandemic. And he's right. So with that, I'll ask Ann to join me, and if you have any questions, we're happy to field them at this time.
Ooh, I'm sure we can come up with 1 or 2.
Yes.
Why don't we start this way, Chase?
Well, no questions, but I will say that your just the presence of health professionals here has made me feel healthier. I've got 2 sodas in here. I haven't not had an urge to take a sip since you've been there, so thanks for that accountability. I can tell you that it gives parents great comfort knowing that you're here. I remember as a child growing up, since the 80s here, the only place that we had to go was Halifax downtown, and You know, with 4 kids, we've been in Port Orange a number of times. I've been a patient myself twice there. Almost chopped my finger off, and my son scratched my eyeball. And your folks took wonderful care. So I don't have any questions other than just to say thank you for for being here and part of the community.
Thank you for trusting us with your care. Yes.
Marilyn?
I would just echo that I think Halifax is a great partner. I do recall when we didn't have the hospital and when we first got it, I think probably my family visited the ER room. And we really didn't have a need in all those years prior, but just coincidentally, there's the hospital and build it and they will come. But I really appreciate everything that Halifax Health does, and certainly your foresight in terms of moving the hospital forward as our population has grown. So thank you.
Drew?
I don't have anything. Thanks for the presentation and the information. We appreciate what you guys do and where you are, and look forward to a great partnership into the future. Thanks.
Scott?
I must play a lot harder than Chase because I've been there way more than some time. I can assure you that. In fact, at some point they may name a wing after me. No, thank you guys for coming out tonight and in the presentation, and just thanks for everything Halifax does in the community. It's not just a hospital. So, and it's been here forever. It's been here since I was born. I was born there, and my parents are longtime residents of the Volusia County area, and you know, it's a community asset, and that's how we see it, and I know the Port Orange community by and large sees it that way. And you know, whether it's community events or holidays or just whatever, you know, when we have after actions and storms, and just doesn't seem to matter what the events are, good, bad, all of them, Halifax always seems to be there in a capacity that serves the community and is ready to serve the community. And there are just some fabulous people that work for Halifax and are residents of our city, and we're proud of that. So appreciate everything you guys do, and don't be strangers. Come anytime. We love having you here. I don't have a lot of questions because your brief is so thorough, and you know, we get so much information and we watch so much. I think on the COVID stuff, but it is great to see how Halifax is faring through that, and that the vision has been put in and the work has been put in to be prepared. And you're right. It seems like it's hard to believe March to now, right? What all has transpired and how you guys have had to react to it, and you've done great. And hopefully we are making that turn. And man, I'm sure I echo a lot of people with, we just want it to be over, right? So no more than you guys do, I'm sure. But thank you guys again, and best wishes for all of you and everybody at Halifax.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming. I know, Ann, we kind of talked over the years that one problem that you've had is that Halifax having a hospital in Port Orange has been a terrific secret for so long that it's great that the awareness that we have a hospital, you know, it's just one of those things. People think Halifax, go to Daytona, and some of those numbers bear that out, and I think you guys have done a terrific job. It certainly doesn't hurt that you have somebody like Joni communicating for you. But and I know my personal experience was somewhat emergent. I had an evening where in the last year and a half or so, my wife came home from work. She works at Halifax, has been there 29 years, and I was complaining of an upset stomach, and it was actually my appendix was in the process of bursting, and the next morning you had it out of me. So if there's something running around your building, that's probably what it was. But, and I also wanted to thank you. You took the time to show me around in this wonderful thing that we're going through in COVID, and showing me around, showing me the wing, and showing me what you guys have done to prepare. And that was some months ago when everybody was really worried about it. I do have a question as far as census. I've been watching the numbers. Part of my role as Volusia League of Cities president is that the mayors meet electronically weekly, and mostly what we talk about is COVID. And I've been watching ICU bed census, and I'm watching the numbers of availability shrink and shrink. Flagler, according to the state, only has 2 beds available. Do we help other areas out and things like that when they have to? How do we do? How's
Yeah,
that?
we certainly have, and you know, I don't know the specifics for Flagler and what they're experiencing right at the moment. So, but I can tell you that earlier in the pandemic, what we would do is, as the Department of Health would go in and help with, say, nursing homes where there were a lot of positive patients and a lot going on, you know, we would just say, okay, we're here, and they would kind of apportion some over here and some over here and some at Halifax. So I don't know if there was a nursing home or something happened for them that all of a sudden took their census up. That's what happened for us several times. But they also know that we're here, we're available, we've communicated, we have shared patients in the past, not necessarily COVID patients unless they needed some of the services specifically at Halifax, but usually it's at the point of entry. As they see they're getting inundated, they might have some come our way versus going in another way. So we are available, and I'll keep an eye. I'll look up there and see what's happened.
I'm just going to say this for everybody watching at home and listening. Are we tired of masks? I'm tired of masks. I wear my mask. We're not through this yet. We're getting there. And there's a lot of optimism because of the vaccines, and it's going to take weeks and months to get them out to people. And the plan is a prioritized plan. We're getting our healthcare workers and our first responders. They're getting the people that take care of us get first dibs on it. So it's going to take some weeks and some months, and even after that, it takes a while for a vaccine to be effective. So I'm going to tell people, these things, these little monsters, we need them for a little while longer. We need to remember to be conscious of the people around us. I wear my mask, not just to protect me from other people, but I don't, all I need is that one casual contact where I could pass it along to somebody else. And it is a process of wearing a mask is a thoughtful process. I think, me personally, my opinion, it not only is something where I protect my health, but I'm showing that I care about the people around me by wearing one. And that's why I choose to do that. I know that it's not fun, but we're getting through this. We're turning a corner. We've come this far. Don't let our guard down now. And that's my message to everybody. And I appreciate you being here to allow me to espouse that message a little bit tonight.
You're hired.
Thank you for that. Yes. Yes.
Sounded to me
you.
like he's trying to
Thank you,
replace
Dr.
Joni a little bit.
Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you guys.
Citizen participation non-agenda. Mrs. Jennifer Card.
Good evening, Council. I
How are
am
you?
here for my last report to you for the Port Orange South Daytona Chamber of Commerce. So I want to thank you for your support of our chamber and especially our businesses this year. I know that some of the decisions that you've had to make have been tough. And I know that you've spent a lot of time outside of just these chamber walls talking to businesses, trying to help them find resources to help them keep putting one foot in front of the other. And I really want to let you guys know that we had our annual banquet last week. We have our new board sitting now, and it's under the very, very amazing hands of Reggie Hunter. So we're excited to have her on board. And I want to express my gratitude because she's here, especially to Debbie Connors. She is an amazing jewel in our community, and I am so grateful that I had the opportunity to work alongside her this year. She's a keeper. She knows I love her and always will, but this is the message that I want to leave you guys with. Thank you so much for supporting me. Thank you for your kindness to me, for your generosity in your advice for me, and I wish you all well for the Christmas holidays, and I echo what Don Burnett says, wear a mask. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Appreciate
Your
it.
reign of terror is coming to an end. Wait a second, but it's not over yet. We might have questions. Where you going?
She's just out of here. She
I
wants
know
to
you
leave.
don't have questions. You
Drew, do
can.
you have any questions?
I do not.
Scott, do you have any
I
questions?
do. I've got them all written down.
No
Chase?
questions. Thank you for your.
Marilyn?
I don't have a question. I would just encourage everyone, shop local, eat local, buy local, support your local businesses in the chamber.
Good work.
What she said.
Yeah.
She's hired.
Yes.
Thank you for everything you've done this year. I know it's not been the easiest year for somebody in leadership. You didn't see this coming,
No.
but you carried that bucket of water very nicely for our community.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Dawn. Thank you guys so
Merry
much.
Christmas.
Jen.
Council comments? Jason, what you got this week?
No comments, Mayor.
Marilyn?
Yeah, I'll make one. I think staff know it, but I think they probably deserve hearing it again, and the citizens do. I worked for the county for a long time, and certainly the last 3 years when I had worked there, I got to know all the departments very well. And I didn't think there was any place that could hold a candle. And I was wrong. Everything A to Z, animal control to zoning, parks and rec, HR, public works, police, fire. I can reassure the citizens and let all staff know just my regard for the staff of Port Orange, your professionalism, your intelligence, your dedication to duty is really equal to any place out there. And so I think the city is going to not only survive, but improve and progress. And I would include the city clerk as I'm looking at her. So thank you for proving me wrong and serving the citizens. That's it.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Drew? You want to follow that?
No, I do not. We got a lengthy agenda, and I'm just gonna nip it in the bud and not say another word.
Scott?
I would always like to echo any comments from Marilyn Ford on she's point on as always, and so great comments, Marilyn, and thank you for your service and your family's service to the community as well.
Yes.
And you're certainly going to be missed, but you got work to do for the rest of the night, so stay focused. And just as a side note, Mayor, I did want to notice that Jen Card indicated she's got time available if we need. So I wanted to write that down for the record. So
Yes.
Hey, now, she does not live in District 1. I know what you're thinking.
we all we need to know is how to get a hold of her. That's all.
There you go.
Yeah, we just gotta get
We
it
call
on.
Debbie.
And for myself, I just want to echo the comments of the council and say, Marilyn, I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss you. Okay. Board appointments, interviews, reports, golf advisory board update.
You're up.
You're up, Lance.
I can't compete with all that, but Marilyn, thank you. Lance Green, Halifax Hospital, 1964.
Slightly longer ago than me.
I'll make it short and sweet. The golf course amazingly is coming to its fiscal year end and has made money. Remarkably, during this whole COVID thing, golf was one of the things that people could go do, and we've put out more rounds of golf this year than I think in our history. You're going to see the numbers as Kemper brings it to you guys, but couldn't be more happier with where we sit with the numbers and those things. Couldn't be more happier with the superintendent that they have out there doing our work. I mean, this guy is doing a phenomenal job. He's got our course looking remarkable. People will pay more money to play a better course, and that's what we're heading. So with that being said, they've got their program set up as far as maintenance. We got some cart path repairs being done, some trees being removed to make things better. So they've got a path of the repairs and restoration as we move forward on a course that's now 30 years old. Some things are overgrown, some things are being damaged by the growth, but I know that Darren and Bob and them guys got a good handle on where we're going with setting some things up in the future, setting some budgets towards the future to make those things happen as well. But like I said, we've got some cart path repairs being done now, which has been needed for a long time, and overall, man, the course is looking really, really good. Questions?
Good to know. Gentlemen?
I,
Questions?
your great presentation, Lance. I was watching something on one of the sports channels a couple weekends ago, and they were talking about that very thing, about how golf is seen as a nationwide rebound in the sport, that has not only, you know, benefited the courses, but the products and the clubs and people seeking lessons. And I've had several people tell me, you know, that have played for years, that their wives have never had an interest, or their spouse never had an interest, and all of a sudden they want to learn to play too, and they're out there playing, and families are playing and getting lessons and things like that. And so it is a great thing to see, and hopefully that's a positive thing that'll come out of all this, and it'll be a shot long term that'll be a positive effect for our city and our course. So
I mean, unfortunately, we've seen that they've lost a lot of the tournaments because of this. And one of the other things we were losing on was cart fees, because now everybody's got to have their own cart versus two people in a cart where you made some money. But overall, I mean, the bottom line is we still made money this year, which is, you know, which is where we want to be. To be able to reinvest back into that thing.
yeah. If it gets them in the game now, hopefully they'll stay in that game for decades.
But I live on my back porch. I see the same people playing every day. Some, you know, the same certain people playing every day. I mean, so there's a lot of people that are just repetitively playing the course.
Group?
I don't have anything. Appreciate it. And, you know, Gene came up here and said they have that spouses backing the blue tournament. So make sure the grounds crew has lots of sand for the divots, because if we all play, there's going to be a ton of divots in that course.
Well, again, the
Lance
budget,
has seen me
the budget hearings are coming on that.
Okay. Make sure there's
Yeah,
extra
but-
sand for that tournament.
But one other thing I want to add to you guys is that Reggie Hunter is now in charge of the chamber, and she actually works for Cypress Head. So, man, what a great little combination that's going to be for Cypress Head as well.
Perfect.
Bring
Excellent.
attention to it even more so. Chase?
No questions, sir.
Marilyn?
I'll say golf local.
There you go.
Have you played Riverbend lately?
Can't do it.
Neither have I.
I live
Apparently,
Cypress
a lot
Head,
of other
man.
people aren't either.
Yeah, I live in Cypress Head, man.
Yeah, I
Halifax Hospital.
1964.
scoring all the points. It's amazing reading a story about Riverbend struggling after so long, and I don't wish them harm in any way, shape, or form, because they've served Ormond Beach for a long time.
Yeah.
But if they close up, there's a ripple effect for
Well,
the
you're
other
seeing
courses
it,
in
and
the
you're
area.
seeing it in our area, and amazingly, Cypress Head's doing well. But when LPGA sold, it was a blessing for us, because that's how we got their superintendent, and he's a top-notch superintendent. This guy is that we have. We are fortunate to have him,
We needed the upgrade, and we got
and
it.
he's a local boy. He might be Halifax Hospital.
Right, there you go.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Club.
Lance.
Good to see you, Lance.
See you, Lance.
Merry Christmas. Environmental Advisory Board update. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you? Happy holidays to everybody. Okay, well, I'm Chris Cunningham. I'm the Environmental Advisory Board Chairperson, and we meet roughly quarterly, and so I come and give a report. And it's been a little challenging to complete any projects because everybody's working from home and nothing's really going on right now, but we're staying on task and focusing on working with the city, and we always appreciate that when we have people come to our meetings and they have citizen concerns, that the city always gets back with us with the answers. They're really great to work with. Continue to talk about the Deck Down Under new project of wildlife signs throughout the city. We have a lot of death to wildlife and hope to educate people and get the citizens involved in putting up some signs in areas that are in need. We also want to encourage the city to use native plants, not only because we show the people how beautiful they are, but also water quality. Water issues are front and center in almost all the environmental situations going on locally, whether it's clean water or just the fact that we can't get the water moving. And so one of the suggestions that we had last time is to get the council more involved in what we do. We can sit and take our education in various parts of the city and how we all work in different groups, but we would really like to engage the council with us as well, instead of just reporting to you. So this is a new strategy, and we would like some feedback from you on some concerns you may have either in your area of where you live, or something that you're finding the citizens are coming to you specifically about that you think our board can be effective. We are putting out in the quarterly newsletters information that's relevant at that particular time, but we would really like input from the council. And given that you are all literally in different parts of town, that would really be helpful to hear from your constituents.
Would you like to have a joint meeting?
That would be very, very appreciated.
Alan, can you set that up for us in the first quarter sometime?
Absolutely.
That's wonderful, and that's really, if you could just
Robin?
listen.
Yeah, I know he's looking straight at Robin. But.
Yeah, it's like, Robin, write that down.
That would be great. Maybe we
Okay.
can tailor some of the questions that are asked of our citizens on the survey and certain ways of communication. Because I know all of you know the environment have become front and center in many, many, excuse me, discussions throughout Florida, Volusia County, and the city of Port Orange, which I go to many different events, and I am always so proud to say I'm from Port Orange and I represent them, because we really do a good job of taking care of our land, but also we address issues that come up as fast as we can. So thank you very much for that. I'm always very proud.
Thank you.
Questions?
Scott?
I don't have any.
Drew?
Nothing, thanks.
Chase?
No question that I can't say enough about you, Chris. And I appreciate
thank
what you do.
Thank you.
Marilyn?
No, thank you.
Best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good to see everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Take care.
Parks and Rec Advisory Board update.
Nobody?
Do we have a member of Parks and Rec?
Not happening.
Oh, I guess we can move on to the public hearing portion of the meeting then. Public hearing portion of the meeting is now open. We have second reading of ordinance number 2020-34, which is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, relating to comprehensive planning, amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan, amending the future land use designation for plus or minus 35 acres from office, residential, transition, and commercial to urban high-density residential, 8 to 16 units per acre, for property generally located along Clyde Morris Boulevard, south of Madeline Avenue, between Clyde Morris Boulevard and Bruner Road, providing for conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2020-34.
Second.
We have a motion, proper second. The item's open on the floor for discussion. Second reading. Mr. Brock, did you have some new information for us? Are we good?
We're good.
Okay. Council questions or comments? Marilyn?
I do, Penny. I did get contacted and got some comments from citizens, and so could you talk a little bit more about the trip generation for a residential unit? Because here was one of the questions that was presented. So a business, generally you think of 8 to 4, 9 to 5. So I guess I'm thinking that's how they, figure out how many trips they would have. In a residence, is the assumption that a certain proportion work, and so they leave at 8, they come back at 5, and so the question really posed was, and it got me really, the citizens concerned that got me thinking, was that perhaps the methodology for trips might be underestimating in the course of residence, because the truth is, even a lot of people are working from home. Even those that work, maybe they work nearby, they come home for lunch in addition to, leaving for work and coming back. So there's actually more trips, and then there's errands or picking up the kids from school. And so could you talk a little bit about trips? Because I'm wondering if it's accurate, and it does concern me. It really got me thinking about putting the load on Clyde Morris and, other roadways if the residents' calculation for trips is off.
Okay. Penelope Cruz, Planning.
Also Halifax Hospital, 1990. Yeah, so, and I'm not the expert in that per se, but I will say that the IT manual is based off of thousands and thousands of studies of these uses. So it's not just a guesstimate of these uses. They do studies all over the United States. They do studies based on the specific, they get down to the specific types of commercial, specific types of offices, very detailed, broken down levels of types of residential. Non-residential users are attractors. You're going to them. It's your destination. So they're attracting trips from all over. So that's where some of those higher numbers are. And when you're looking at a land use amendment, the item that's open right now, the state law requires that we analyze the theoretical maximum of what's allowed on those properties, and that's where you see some of those large numbers. But then when we get to an actual site plan level, we're doing a transportation analysis on the very specific use. In this case, on this property, it had a pretty intense commercial and mixed-use land use on it right now. That has a floor area ratio of 1.5. As well as, the commercial on there as well. So comparing what's allowed right now, it does have a higher intensity. It does have a higher level of trips. And a lot of times, really, most people when they're working, there's not very many people that are able to go home for lunch. A lot of times you're working out of the area that you live in. But again, those non-residential users are drawing trips from a large radius. So that's where some of that comes to, and I don't know if Tim wants to add anything more to that. And then in this case, this particular property, in addition to the land use that's currently on it, the previous, when we were looking at the zoning, the next item, the previous PUD that was approved here had a lot more intense development as well to what's proposed here, so that's where you see that differential in the numbers. It had a significant amount of square footage of commercial, as well as over 450 multifamily units approved, whereas now they're asking for no commercial and only 360 units.
Okay, then 2 more questions. How often are the trip studies updated?
Pretty frequently. We are almost annually or every 2 years purchasing the next. So I think now we're in the 10th edition. So they are updated very frequently.
Okay, then my other question would be, and it relates to the trip, this is adjacent to a heavy commercial or heavy trip location, the Walmart, neighborhood center. When you add other commercial property adjacent to it, in reality, don't people shop and then go to commercial things close, the dry cleaner in the same plaza? So haven't you already accounted for their trip? So when you say that, commercial, it's so dense, you've got this added, it seems to me like you're doing a Walmart supercenter and then you're adding all the trips, and the reality really is you should factor it once for the high demand, the Walmart neighborhood center, and then the out parcels really are people that generally are in the area, so their trip ratio is lower.
So we are required to analyze each property. There are internal capture ratios that are part of the equation, so it takes that into consideration. But they do have their own generation rates as well. But there are internal capture ratios, so that's always taken into consideration when you're looking at adjacent commercial.
Okay. And then my final question would be not about trip, but about apartments, which is what they're designed. There's been some articles in the local newspapers recently about developments and how there's all these high-end or new apartment buildings coming online. To what extent does planning and land designation look at, if you will, the saturation of a certain type of residence? So they say, well, yeah, we could build the apartments for 350 people, but the reality is when you look at all the others around it, they're saturated, they're going to sit vacant, because I don't think that's a good situation for the city either,
So-
or the developer.
Correct. So when we get these applications and we're analyzing what they've submitted, and we're getting ready to prepare our staff reports, we always ask for a market study so we can take that into consideration. I believe there was some mention of the market study in the staff report, but we always look at that to provide justification to whether this is really a needed use. Not only is it whether it's compatible and meets the locational criteria of the comprehensive plan and compatible to adjacent uses, and whether it meets the infrastructure analysis, but whether there's actually the need. And so we do require those market studies to come in and provide that data. And in this case, there was evidence that the occupancy rates in this area were pretty high, and that they were filling up pretty high too as new units were coming online. But I can let the applicant probably speak to that a little bit more. It's their market study.
Yeah, I guess my question would be, to what extent does that occupancy rate carry over time? You know, because, yeah, it may be, you know, it's a supply-demand type thing. Okay, I just needed to ask those questions. Those are things I've thought of since the first reading.
And while I'm up here, I did want to let the council know that since first reading, the applicant has provided the conservation easement for that area to the north, as well as the 2-foot non-vehicular the whole way. We have those signed easements in hand, and if these items are approved tonight, we'll have them recorded.
Okay. Chase, questions? Drew, questions? Scott? Would anyone here care to speak to the item?
Mayor, council members, Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive, Port Orange. The staff report states the proposed amendment is not consistent with policies of the comprehensive plan regarding the retention of existing commercial acreage already designated on the FLU map, future land use map. The object is to ensure that the amount of land already designated for non-residential uses does not decrease. I have listened to Mrs. Cruz's argument in defense of decreasing the commercial acreage at this node when she presented it at the Planning Commission and at the first reading before the council. I still do not agree with it. Your policy requires that a decrease in one place needs to be offset with an increase in new acreage elsewhere prior to the approval of the lost commercial acreage. While Mrs. Cruz has mentioned that the changes to the available commercial space at this node have occurred over the intervening years, that may have been due to the offsetting commercial acreage losses elsewhere in the city. That issue has not been addressed. This short-term rationalization for not complying with the long-term vision of future land use plan is simply irrelevant. The planning department should probably not even have agreed to process the developer's application until first getting direction from the city council as directed in the stated policy. The continuous chipping away at the available commercial acreage is inappropriate because of the difficulty of finding replacement spaces. You have a policy, and I would argue that you should hold fast to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Anyone else? Back to council. Comments?
I would like to hear from the applicant about the market study and my question about the need over time, and to what extent, you know, how long that market study looked out.
Jeff Brock, 444 Seabreeze Boulevard, Daytona Beach, Florida, representing the applicant Collier Companies. There was a market study done. It was presented at the first reading, and it basically said that they were running about 95% current occupancies in I believe it was a 5-mile radius. As far as tracking projects outside of that perimeter, I don't recall there being anything like looking at the apartments being built in LPGA and the impact that would have on occupancy here in Port Orange. But we believe that Port Orange really is underserved in the multifamily apartment complex. We are building the apartment complex on next to the high school, Atlantic High School, as well as this one, based on the need that we're seeing. Again, there is a significant amount of population moving to Florida right now because of COVID. There is a rather large exodus from the Northeast. We're seeing it in single-family homes, and we're also seeing it in apartment complexes. So we think the need is there. We are in a business to make money, and we wouldn't be building and spending this kind of capital if we didn't believe that the demand was there.
I do have a question. Well, I mean, that's a nice sentiment, but if you're going to do a market study, it strikes me that's a point in time, and my question is, to what extent does the market study say that that's going to be a viable apartment complex for 5 years, 6 years? I mean,
Yeah,
don't you just you want to know that the market's there,
Right,
not
right.
just
They
for
look at
today.
growth. They look at population demand and the
Okay.
and the demographics of the area on who is
And
likely.
how long did they go out? 5 years?
I
10
think it was
years?
5. I don't have the study with me, but we did present it to staff. They have it, and I believe it was 5 years.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No, sir. There being none, thank you.
Thank you.
Comments or questions, council of staff?
One final comment. Just wanted to I want to thank the applicant for working with us on Brunner Road. You know, that's always been a big sticky point for mine. I'm never a fan of connecting roads. Never going to get 100% buy-in for development here in Port Orange or anywhere for that matter. There's always going to be people that are going to be opposed to it, and I understand their rationale. But at the very least, we've got folks that are willing to work with us, and so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any other comments, council? Anything else? Okay, thank you. Any other further comments of staff, council? There being none, call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
No.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
I'm still a no. 3-2. Item 27 is ordinance number 2020-35, second reading. An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, rezoning property consisting of approximately plus or minus 35 acres from planned unit development to moderate density multifamily residential district R3M, authorizing revision of the official zoning atlas and providing for an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2020-35.
Second.
We have a motion, proper second. The item's open on the floor for discussion. This is relating to the same property. Any questions, council? There being none, would anyone care to speak to the item? Back to us. Anything further? Call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
No.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
No. 3-2. That brings us to first reading of ordinance number 2020-39. An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending the comprehensive capital improvement element, providing for fiscal year 2021 to 26 5-year schedule of capital improvements and supporting data, providing repeal of conflicting ordinances and resolutions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2020-39.
Second.
We have a motion, proper second. The item's open and on the floor for discussion. And
Good evening, Penelope Cruz Planning. So this time of year, every year we come before you. This is a state requirement that we basically take what the council has approved in the approved budget and the approved capital improvements program and put those items that are related to concurrency facilities, transportation, water, sewer, solid waste, recreation, schools, put those items that are over $25,000 into our capital improvements element. There's no new information or new data that you haven't already seen. It's basically a copy and paste. From that already adopted budget and capital improvements program. Oops, wrong way. And basically you'll see it's in that strike through and underline format. The previous fiscal year is removed. The next one is added in. And it's just a summary for those watching in the public. It's really just a cycle. On your consent agenda earlier on this agenda tonight, you had the concurrency management report for this year for 2020. That should start guiding the initial budget discussions for next year's budget. So for this item that's before you here, the 2019 concurrency management report identified any places that we needed to really prioritize as far as infrastructure, and that helps in prioritizing the budget and then getting that CIP adopted and put into the CIE. So with that, just here to answer any questions you might have.
Council, any questions? There being none, would anyone here care to speak to the item?
One more, I do have one question actually to come back to us.
There being nobody that wants to speak to it, coming back to us. Chase.
For our concurrency, can you tell who sets the requirements? You know, we go through concurrency to determine, do we have enough water? Do we have enough schools and all that other stuff? Who's making those thresholds? It says, is it the state, is it the county, do we decide we have enough?
Yeah, we decide for a lot of it. So the council, when they adopted our comprehensive plan throughout the years, in your comprehensive plan is where those level of service standards are. Over the years, we've adjusted some of those through data and analysis from our Public Utilities Department, our water and sewer level service standard. The number has decreased because of usage, because of conservation efforts and things like that. We were able to decrease that level of service number. It doesn't mean a decrease in service, it just means that we're being more conservative with our water usage. The parks level of service standards are adopted. Also, all these level of service standards are adopted in your city, our city's comprehensive plan. So we set those for the facilities we have control over. For transportation, we set the level of service standards for local roads, but for state and county roads, those agencies set those level of service standards for their roads. For schools, it's something that's adopted in an interlocal agreement that was put together with all the communities in Volusia County. So those schools level of service standards are adopted county-wide. That's another state requirement. They're also in every city in the county's comprehensive plan. So for facilities we are in control of, we set the standards, and then for other facilities, those agencies set the standards.
Any other comments or questions? There being none, would anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, final comments, questions, council? Call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. That closes the public hearing portion of the meeting, and with that, we're going to take a short 10-minute recess, and then we will be back for the regular agenda items. And we're back, or most of us are. Regular agenda, item 29, approval of amendment number 1 to the restatement of the City of Port Orange YMCA lease agreement. Alan, who's speaking to that to recap it for us?
Sure, Mayor. So this is just an amendment to the YMCA agreement. They lease part of the property here in City Center for their activities, and they had requested a deferral of rental payments. We negotiated that. We came to council last time and came to somewhat of an agreement for a 6-month deferral, which would then be paid back 20% a year for 5 years after that date, which I believe ends, like the last date would be June, and then in July they would start paying it back. I think it's an additional $1,600-$1,700 a month above and beyond what the current rent would be.
And how did this differ in any way from what we discussed last time with the guidelines we gave you?
I don't believe it deferred in any way from what we had discussed.
Okay.
I think the request originally was a 12-month, and council was more comfortable with the 6 months. We are putting the YMCA on the agenda for, I believe March, to come back and talk to us, and then of course again in June towards the end of this period.
Okay. Comments or questions, council, staff?
Yeah, I do. Under Section 34, force majeure, under the original contract, which is in the electronic file, page 470, in the case of default, it talks about if it's something that was out of the control of the YMCA, they would not be required to, pay what they owed. And my question is, or I just wanted it to be clear, that COVID shall not be considered something outside of the control, because at the point that we're entering in this extension,
That's the reason why we're here.
we know that it has happened, and I believe the Y has spoken to, recovering from that. So I just wanted that to be clear. And then the second thing was, and I asked the city attorney, but I also wanted it, whether it goes in the contract or we just have it for the record, in the event of a default, I want it clear, I understand legally, because of the contract, the city would be able to place a lien against assets of the Y to recoup the monies that are owed. And so apparently that is normal legal practice, but I just really wanted to make it clear to the taxpayers that I think that's very prudent. If something untoward happens, we become a creditor, so the city could recover anything from assets that the Y may have. But that would be the extreme case if, they totally went defunct. So those are the only things. Was that correct, Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, in the event of a default on the lease agreement, we could convert that to a judgment and then go after personal property, which is
Okay.
how that lien would come about in that event. The revision in paragraph 34, we would need to, well, one, that'd be a term that I think the YMCA would have to agree to. If they understand and agree to that, then we can make that slight modification as part of your approval tonight. So we'll bring back and make that clear in the amendment that provision does in fact exclude any COVID-19 related issues. And I see Chris nodding in the background there, so that's pretty promising.
Bobby.
I guess my question is if that's our shared understanding and the record reflects this, then I'm okay with not putting that in the contract tonight. It's just understood that that's an exception.
Chris Silcott, CEO for the Bushbury YMCA. I was not born at Halifax Hospital, but we do have a partnership with them. Yes, everything that Dr. Ford says, we're good with. We agree to.
Okay. Anything else, Marilyn?
No, thank you.
Chase, questions, comments? Drew? Scott?
No.
I do need a motion. The recommended motion is to approve Amendment 1 and restatement of the City of Port Orange YMCA lease agreement authorizing the mayor and city clerk to sign the agreement.
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Would anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, council comments or questions? There being none, call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
No.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
No.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 3-2. And that brings us to the short list of city manager executive search firms. Thank you, Chris.
Good evening, Jamie Miller tonight. As you're aware, we went out for an RFP for the executive search firm for selection of our next city manager. We did receive 6 responses. Our purchasing manager, Jim Tillman, is here tonight in case you have any questions regarding our purchasing process. But the item on the table tonight is 2-part. The first part is to identify if council would like to shorten the list of vendors that they would like to bring in for further discussion and interview with them. And if so, the timing of that. So council's next regularly scheduled meeting is January 19th. If council is willing to entertain a special meeting, we could have that sooner. My proposal would be for January 5th, but that's the pleasure of the council. We can hold that whenever they'd like. Some of the responding agencies have indicated that they are doing most of their business electronically at this time due to the COVID environment. So I did want to ensure you that we are able to conduct those interviews electronically as well. And for council's reference, the items that you received, there's a timeline between 12 to 16 weeks from the vendors for the time to make a selection, and the costs range from $17,750 to $32,900. So I'll turn it over to council or Jim Tillman if you have any further questions.
Well, I think that my suggestion, and council, we can discuss this if you wish, is that on the next item I was going to suggest that when we discuss the interim council position, that we have a special meeting on January 5th or so to select that person, so that we don't have to go a regular council meeting without with somebody missing in the seat, and we can discuss that then. But that could be actually be a 2-item meeting if you want to do it that night, and then whoever it is we swear in for the interim position could take part in that conversation. But tell me what you all think.
Would we be able to kind of playing this out for a second? In another agenda item, we're looking for a special meeting next Tuesday. Would we not be able to shortlist this tonight and then make that decision next Tuesday and get that ball rolling a little bit quicker? Do we have to wait till January?
So I'm going to defer to our purchasing manager. I know that we had put in the RFP the intent of us to have another meeting to potentially, after we shortlist the firms for interviews. I believe since we're doing it virtually, a little less notice may be required, but I'll defer if that's enough timeline for the vendors to be able to turn around for a shortlist.
Hate to say it, you got to come all the way up here to give us a one-word answer.
I agree with Jamie. The only thing is the notice of the shortlisting process and all. I think we could probably, other than that, you could probably come to a consensus of the top number 3 or 2 or whatever you decide there as the committee there. But I think to be conservative, if we put that notice that it's a shortlisting meeting, then we can have open discussion and it's posted.
So you
there.
do think it's possible to do it next week?
We
Okay.
can make it happen.
Well, and that, with that said, can you do me a favor?
What's that?
Say your name and position for the record.
Okay, yes, I'm Jim Tillman, City Purchasing Manager.
Okay. Now Robin is happy with me all of a sudden.
Oh, yes. Okay.
All right, so can you guys just kind of walk us through that one more time? So how would we,
That-
no
that-
surprise,
that's
I'm trying
why-
to expedite this a little bit.
I
right?
wanted
So-
I wanted to clarify. So my understanding tonight is that we would potentially shortlist down to 2 or 3.
Right.
If my understanding is we could provide them notice that it's our intent to have interviews next week, the 22nd.
Right.
Absolutely.
Knowing that if that is not sufficient notice, you may have a vendor potentially back out if they're not
Mhm.
available for that date.
Yeah, and
Would that
I'm
be
not speaking,
inaccurate?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I'm not speaking for the whole council, just my perspective would be, if we could do that, I say let's do that. Let's do it, I think staff's got a recommendation now. Let's shortlist of 3 tonight, get them interviewed on Tuesday, let's make a decision. And I mean, my personal perspective is I think we should be looking for firms who are ready to rock and roll and get on this and get moving. If they're not ready, they're probably not gonna be ready to do this with us. I mean, this is what these firms do, so I can't imagine.
Good point.
This is not like building a structure they haven't seen the plans to. They got this. I hope. My
Drew.
thoughts, anyway.
Drew, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd like to move it along. I mean, the time is of the essence, so the quicker that we can get a short list and get the interviews, the process can start. So as quickly as legally, meet all our deadlines, I'd like to see it as quick as possible, for sure.
Chase?
I'm fine with that.
Marilyn?
I have a short list.
Okay.
So consensus
so
for
you
the
have a
22nd
consensus.
for the interview. Now we would look for a short list of candidates from the council tonight, if they are prepared to do so that we know who to bring in for the interview.
Marilyn, you have a list. Go ahead.
I do. I want to make sure that I'm pulling up their applications so that I'm reading their names correctly.
Yep.
Or maybe I put it under agenda, or I filed it. Final agenda. Draft scout. Well, let me just, okay, my short list is Baker Tilly,
Okay.
Colin Benziger, and Mercer Group.
Okay. Okay, next, anybody?
Chase, any additions or subtraction? Or I just should say any additions to that list?
No.
Drew?
I think I'm good with those 3. We had 6 submissions, but there are 7 documents on the purchasing thing, and 2 of them are from Colin Benziger. One was the more expanded version with all the thing, and then the other one got that. Did anybody else submit a secondary?
Nobody else submitted.
Okay, so they were the only ones with the two
Yes,
two
that's
submissions,
correct.
or 2
Uh-huh.
documents.
Mhm.
Yeah,
You
I
good
think-
with that list? You want to add anybody to it?
No, I think those 3 would serve us pretty well.
Scott?
I would concur with that. I just wanted to give staff an opportunity to weigh in on their recommendation if
Yes.
it's different than.
Yeah, I'd like to hear theirs as well.
Okay.
You have any, Jamie, is there anybody on that we left out you feel that you would recommend that we interview?
I'd say based on the pricing structure and the timelines, that I feel the 3 that have been presented so far would be the most appropriate. to move forward.
It's funny because, well, your list matches mine. Matter of fact, your list matched mine.
I didn't copy.
No, I'm like, they're in the same order too, so I was wondering. Okay. I'm good with that. I think we have consensus on that.
We have consensus then?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We know who we're going to talk to, and we know when we're going to talk to them.
Okay.
You in need of any further direction from us?
Do we need a motion on that, or we got?
Yes, I'd like, do we have a motion?
So
to-
moved.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion to shortlist the three named firms and a second for interview on next week and a special meeting on the 22nd. We have a proper second. Would anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, council final comments? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'd say you have a voted consensus. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
The last item, if I may.
I was going to say Robin was pointing something out, but
I just wanted to make sure if there was any concerns or opposition to having that virtual, to having them present virtual for that. It'll definitely make the notice period being shorter,
I'd
probably
actually
easier
prefer
for
it.
them. Okay, I just
Yeah,
wanted to make
present.
sure.
Yeah, in person.
Wait, I think you guys, two of you are saying two different.
Two different things.
no,
yes.
I'd
Here
prefer.
in person.
But
need to be in
the
person.
people, yes.
I'm fine with them being here virtually.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And quite frankly, we have to be now. We don't have
Yeah,
that option
yeah.
anymore.
Right. What time would you like to start?
Council, 5:30?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
What's that date again?
December 22nd.
Put that on my phone right now.
7 days. Item 31, update on patient transport system. Alan, who's presenting?
Chief Fuston.
Anybody we've heard of? How you doing, Chief?
I'm well, how are you?
Good.
Okay, good evening. Ken Fuston, Fire Chief. I was not born in Halifax. However, I've been down
Or
here
anywhere
about 4.5
close?
years now, and I'm jealous of all of you that were and got to grow up down here. So, just a brief update on what our transport system is doing here in Port Orange, and I'd entertain any questions along the way. Again, we started back on April the 15th of last year. We purchased a demo model ambulance for about $181,600. The gear for our firefighters that we hired was about $9,000, so our total capital startup cost was about $190,000. Again, we began April the 15th of 19, ran through the end of the fiscal year, September 30th. We calculated the firefighter salaries, or 50% of the salary cost from the hire date to the end of the fiscal year, to be $91,125. We looked at the overtime that was specific to ambulance coverage, and we estimated that cost to be $27,223 and change. EMS for the EMS supplies for our ambulance, we looked at our total EMS budget, and just to give you a little idea how we came up with some of these numbers, we looked at 1/6 of our budget, what we spent. We have 5 operating companies plus our transport ambulance, so we just took about 1/6 of our total EMS supplies and came up with that number. Fuel for the ambulance is to the penny, $3,475. Our ambulance our ambulance maintenance fees came right from fleet management, $3,280. Add in our total capital expense of $196. The total startup expenses came to about $322,886. Total revenues that we received in FY19 was $118,443. So the first year out of pocket, we were about $204,000 out of pocket. In FY20, which started on October 1, we calculated in 50% of the firefighter salaries for the entire fiscal year instead of from the hire date. So that came to $121,500. Our overtime for staffing estimate, again, just looking at our daily staffing sheets, came to $74,300. EMS supplies about $10,189. Ambulance fuel $72,18. Ambulance maintenance $14,665. Total revenues that we received in FY20 was about $448,000 and change. That netted us about $220,327 to the good in FY20. Total expenses, if we look at from inception to date, if we look at the net loss from FY19 calculated in the FY20 gains, we're still about $15,883 to the good, which I think is an overwhelming successful program.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of statistics on this particular page. I did want to go over those a little bit. This particular page at the very bottom is just slightly different from the page that you all have, probably that you were given a couple days ago. I updated this to make it as current as I could. FY19, We transported 365 emergent patients, 143 non-emergent patients. We averaged about a little over three transports per day in that first portion of our transport program. FY20, we saw things really start to pick up. With the enactment of the CARE agreement that we negotiated with Volusia County, I have to give them and their people their due credit. They are operating the system the way it's supposed to be operated. They're not staging their ambulances inappropriately. They're not trying to jump our calls, and we're not trying to jump theirs. It is operating as designed, and I have to give them credit where credit is due. Emergent calls for this fiscal year, we had a little over 1,000 transports. Non-emergency transports were about 339. Our average is up to about 3.81 per day. If you look at the revenue, based on the number of transports, we're averaging in FY20 a little bit over $320 a transport. Comparison by the month, you can see when we started back in May, we were slightly under 3 transports a day. By November of 19, we were pushing 4. And finally in November of 2020, we're up to about 4.5 transports per day. And this is a reminder, this is only 12 hours per day of operation. We are the only municipal transport provider in the system that operates part-time. Everybody else, the other 4 municipalities, all operate full-time. Since inception in April of 15, we have transported 2,153, not patients, but we've had 2,153 patient transports. We are making a big impact in our community. The current average response time for emergent calls within Port Orange between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Our transport unit is about 7 minutes and 5 seconds. For non-emergent calls for our transport unit, it's about 8 minutes and 23 seconds. Compared to the Volusia County response time between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. We tried to look at their response times and legitimately compare it to ours. Their emergent calls for November, we had to manually dig into every call using the CAD system that we have access to. We could only look back 30 days because it was so labor intensive to do that off the CAD. So the 30-day snapshot we looked at for November of 20, their emergent call average response time was about 7 minutes and 23 seconds. We also asked them for the same information months ago and just got it a couple weeks ago. I'm still honestly trying to decipher their information. I can't figure out why there's such a large difference in their information compared to ours. They look at priority E versus priority 1E calls. That's nomenclature that we aren't that familiar with. So I think a lot of it has to do with how the call is typed when the call is received by the 911 center and then how it's pushed out to the units.
What was it a couple of years ago before we started this? When we were looking into it, do you have those numbers?
Ooh. I don't have that off the top of my head, sir, but I can get that to you.
All right.
Local agency comparables. Again, Port Orange, we're the only part-time unit in the system. We average about 4.5 transports per day. Deltona recently was given a second unit in spite of Oven having a call volume just slightly higher than ours. They have 1 full-time unit. Now they have a unit that operates from, I think, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Edgewater runs a full-time unit. New Smyrna Beach runs 1 full-time unit. And you can see by the number of transports in the month of September, as well as the average daily hour, we're operating at half the time and doing the exact same amount of work. So our time on task is very much higher compared to theirs. Ponce Inlet, they ran about 16 calls in September. They average about one half call per day. Forecasting. This is kind of what everybody was wanting to see, I think. If we consider going to full-time transport, I will stand here and tell you that we will need 3 more positions to do that. The 3 additional firefighter salaries would be about $243,000. The gear for those extra firefighters, $9,000. Our projected overtime expenses will still remain the same because we're still going to be, if we add 12 more hours of service, but only add 3 more bodies, it offsets. So the overtime, the reliance on overtime will stay the same. EMS supplies on our ambulance, we added approximately 35% to what the known expenses that we spent in FY20. Ambulance maintenance, we added 35% off of FY20. We do have a first year payment to the lease and replace fund of $15,100. We've calculated that in. So the total projected expenses, if we go full-time, would be $384. Again, to be very, very conservative, if we double our operating time, we are not going to double our revenue. We are not going to double our call volume. Quite frankly, I think we would be lucky to hit the 50th percentile because we simply run fewer calls at night than we do during the day. To be uber conservative, we have estimated a 35% increase in call volume and a 35% increase in revenue, just to be super conservative. We estimate that to be about $605,000 for an entire fiscal year if we run 24/7. So projected net at full-time operations, about $220,401. I will stand here before you once again and say that I believe this is the best thing this council, this community, and our firefighters ever did. We are providing a quality, high level of service to the community that we have lacked for a long time. The primary reason for us to go to 24-hour operation is simple. It's self-sustainable. I've proved to you, I've forecasted we would pay the bills, and we are. And it's also critical to the continuity of care. We don't have to hand that patient off to a completely separate crew and have that patient tell the same story over and over and over to a different crew of members. It might be from a different agency like Volusia County EMS. That's the primary reasons. Self-sustainability, continuity of care. With that, I'll entertain any questions.
I think for my part, when I was trying to decide, and I was admittedly on the fence at the time, the one deciding factor for me was that we're answering these calls anyway. Now we're answering with an ambulance. My other concern at the time is, and it's still a concern, is that I know that Volusia County can redeploy their ambulances accordingly when they know that we're in service, not in service, to account for what they do or don't have in their system in other areas. I mean, they've got a dynamic deployment system, and my concern is that I wanted this as a service enhancement, and I think even if they're deploying dynamically, it's still a service enhancement, but just maybe not the one that we thought we were getting. So I think that is something that I've got to say, I need you to continue to watch to make sure that we're getting sufficient coverage.
I will say that the night tour is a little bit more difficult. They pull a lot of our ambulances. They put fewer ambulances on the street. And as a result, we see fewer and fewer and fewer stays or operating in Port Orange. Their response time is respectable. It's not that much different than ours. My biggest thing is our program is sustainable to the citizens. It's sustainable to our budget, but it also provides that continuity of care, which is huge in EMS.
Questions, Chase?
Yeah, do you have the numbers for any of the bad debt, ones that we have to eventually write off?
I have that. I don't have that in front of me, but I can get that to you.
Okay. You know well of my position has been in the past in this. I'm very pleased to see it successful. I mean, I certainly don't wish it. You wish it only that. And my prayers out to our COVID guys there.
Yep. Yep.
I'm not opposed to, now that we have it. I can't see a scenario where I would support increasing more transport vehicles out there. I'm not entirely opposed to looking at going full time now that we have it. I see that it's financially sustainable at this time. I'm curious as to what the need is. I understand the point that you're making on the continuity of it. Is there an issue with the response times for the later hours?
No, not really. Their response times are respectful, sir. I don't want to sit here and say that their response times are horrible compared to ours, because they're simply not. My biggest thing is we have proven sustainability, but the big thing is continuity of care. We have to get there, treat the patient, turn the patient over to a completely separate crew, and then that patient has to go through the whole interview process with a different crew. We're missing an opportunity to create a more solid revenue stream. I mean, we have proven that we can pay for the program. However, it's a quality of life for our citizens. I did not want to get into the ambulance business to make money. I always felt we could at least pay the bills, which we have. But I think it's continuity of care and it's a self-sustainable program. I'm not going to stand here and say that their response times are horrible, because they're not. They're really not that far off of ours.
Yeah, well, and I've always appreciated your honesty throughout. I've never questioned any of that by any means. At the end of the day, I still got to look at the dollars. In a perfect world, the ideal situation is if we're adding that to the taxpayer in an increase in ad valorem. Ideally, once we're sustainable and we've made that money back, I would like to reduce that off the millage later on, since we don't need those startup costs anymore. But that's a conversation for us to have later on. But that's where I would be more open to the full-time, because we add the money to it, we get it started, we're bringing in revenue, which is great to see, but I don't expect that I don't do it to get money either. However, I am still taking dollars from our taxpayer in a double tax when they're already paying for it for the county. That's always going to be my position on that. But I'm happy to see it successful, and that's the door that I would leave open in order to move forward with that.
Marilyn?
I'm probably as surprised as anybody else to see that we've not only paid our bills, we've made a little bit of money to the good. Because it is sustainable, I would agree to go to full-time. Well, it's attractive, as Councilman Tremont said, to think that any money that we make, maybe we could use it to offset our tax rate. I think the reality is the ambulances are very expensive, the fire trucks are very expensive, so any extra dollars that we have, I would like to see, which I already know the city does. They have that revolving fund or lease where they start taking your money to pay for the vehicle as you need to replace it. The medical equipment is such a high dollar. I would just prefer to see any money that we get go in to a fund for those vehicles and for anything related to fire, because I think at the end of the day, that saves us, capital down the road.
At one point in one of my early presentations, I cited a fire department in my home state of Illinois that's using their excess ambulance funding to offset pension liability. They make a larger annual pension contribution to the fire department with their excess funding from their ambulance.
Interesting.
So I presented that as an idea here at one point.
I could go for that too, sitting on the fire pension board. That works for me.
Certainly, we don't want to jump the gun because we're still only a year and a half into it.
Yeah.
But with that thought in the back of our head, we're going, yeah. Scott?
Just a couple of comments with regard to the past response times. My recollection is that in the inception, when we started really looking at this, we had the same challenges trying to decipher what they defined as a response time. But I do know when we got to looking at the CAD reports, it's not what we thought a response time was. So the comparable to go back in the past to whatever they're doing now, probably, I don't know how relevant that would even be. But I am glad to hear that the program is, because that was a concern, right? Is that would there be some way that it wouldn't work out? And I'm glad the relationship is working out and the agreement is working as it should. That all makes me have even more confidence in that. So the one other comment is, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Chief. If you can't speak to it, don't guess. But I remember in the budget discussions early in the budget process for the county, they had talked about adding a significant amount of ambulances and people. And my recollection is that didn't happen.
That's correct.
That's right. That got cut out of the budget. So what we had hoped was that not only would we start this, but that they would add to it, which even more would help fill the gap and the need a little bit for patient care. And just as a point, that didn't happen. So.
And in their defense, we
I
all know the process, what's going on with the
Sure.
new people being seated at Volusia County.
Yep.
We may see some changes out there.
Yeah, and I get that. Just a point of reference that, this has been something going on. We've all been dealing with this for several years now. This is something we've watched and it's evolved, and we've had these discussions. And sometimes I think some of the some of the history that maybe doesn't necessarily get captured in great detail is still relevant every now and then. And that's just a couple of things that I remember was how hard of a time we had truly deciphering what a response time was. We know what we think a response time. The taxpayer, I was speaking with one earlier today, and before I could even finish the sentence, they said, well, it should be from the time somebody calls to the time the unit gets there. So we know that wasn't exactly what was happening. But that being said, I was hopeful that for the greater good of all of Volusia County, that there was going to be some increase in resources, for the county as well, to try to continue that gap. The county's growing. I mean, they are growing. Our city's growing, but the county as a whole is growing. Florida is in a massive growth rate right now. So, but I appreciate the presentation. Great information, Chief, as always. And I think Marilyn and Chase said it right. When you look at numbers, that you really can't dispute the numbers, so to speak, and the need is still there, that it probably is the right thing to do to move towards a full-time commitment with this and continue to monitor it and continue to help and hope and support that the county will continue to add resources, because I think geographically speaking, county-wide, that's still needed. So even if cities like Port Orange and other cities continue to do this, I don't know that it's keeping pace with the demand and closing some of that gap, which I would kind of hope to see.
Drew, you don't have an opinion about fire services to share with us, do you?
Oh, yeah,
Nothing?
yeah, no. I have a few things. First off, I want to congratulate you and commend you on accomplishing something that a lot of people doubted could be done. I started on the fire department in 1985, and it came up over the years until I retired in 2012, and we were never able to cross that bridge. Couldn't get the CON, couldn't make any of that happen. And I know it's a different time, but you did something here that is commendable and obviously is working.
It's the whole team, sir.
Yes, sir. I agree. Never about making money. It's not a big revenue generator, but we're more than paying the bills. That being said, the numbers and the revenue that you reported was actually collected revenue, correct?
That's correct.
Not billed revenue, so there really is no bad debt in there. Of course, we know we're not collecting 100%
Right.
of the calls, but that's actual revenue that we collected.
That's our portion of what was given to us from Volusia County, and they keep 10% for their administrative expenses.
Yes, but that's collected, and there really isn't bad debt in there because those are checks that have been deposited.
That's correct.
Okay. So, we all knew, every city, Daytona, their collection numbers are billed versus collection are way lower than ours, I'm sure. Holly Hill, a lot of those cities are. I don't know if our numbers are the highest, but I'm sure they're up there. And I don't know what the collection rate is. I think it was predicted to be maybe somewhere in the 55 to 60% range at one point. I don't know if we're quite there, billed versus collected or whatever, but.
I could work with the finance director and get you some numbers on that.
Yeah, it's just, like I said, clearly it is working, and I would also support moving to full-time, 24/7. You bring up that continuum of care, and that was always a big thing. Was like we'd do everything, have the patient prepped, evac would roll in and start going through the same thing again. And obviously still happening, but if we could do it 24/7, I'd support it, and I think we need to start moving in that direction in a hurry. So whatever you need from us.
What I would need from you would probably request Manager Allen to communicate with Manager Rechtenwall and see if we just can't get those wheels turning.
Yeah, as council knows, we still do have to get permission from the county. I
Yep.
know we don't have it at this point, but yes, if it's the council's direction that you would like us to contact the county and kind of push for that, then we can absolutely do that.
Yeah. Deltona was able to be successful basically with the same numbers we have. They're not identical numbers, but they're very, very close. I'd like to move in that direction for sure.
Sure. And then if we do move in that direction and the county agrees, we would be bringing back some budget adjustments to request those additional positions, equipment, everything that we need for the budget to adjust it.
And honestly, when it comes to budget discussions, Alan, every time we have an update along these lines outside of the budget cycle, to me, it's very helpful because inside the budget cycle, it's this and a dozen other things that we're looking at, and sometimes it's good really just to have to take a look at a program in and of itself like this. So, Chief, I'm appreciative of doing this for that reason. And I've got to say one other thing. I'll come back to you in a second. I have noticed a tremendous change at the county level since George Rechtenwald took over as county manager. I know it's not perfect, nothing is, but the idea of cooperating and collaborating seemed like a foreign thing under the last county manager, and it seems that there has been a total about-face. And I know that we don't get everything we ask for, and neither do they, but the fact that we can have real conversations about what's good for our citizens, I'm appreciative of the county manager for having the right attitude and the right approach. It is very helpful.
Much better than ever.
Yep. Marilyn, what you had something? to add?
Yeah, I would suggest that when you look at budget and putting this on, that the earliest you would look to do this would be April 1. Third quarter of this year, because that way you've got a nice, we're all the way through first quarter now. Second quarter, you get all the ducks in the row. So that way, when you're talking, and looking ahead, you have a start date in mind.
And actually, with advertising, recruiting, hiring,
And maybe
training,
later than
we're going to be
that.
way past April 1st.
Yeah, but that way, if
we have the
people-
hiring list with one person on it right now.
Yeah, but that way, if people go, oh, you're starting tomorrow, no.
Right.
Doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
We're government, we move a little bit slower than most, but we at least head in the right direction.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments, Chase? you
Just
had
one
something
more,
else?
Chief. You can provide, to the best of your ability, where we were at before we started, as far as transport times, what we're looking at, and where we're at now. I just want to see the quantification from where we were and what we're at now.
I'll get right on that.
Thanks, sir.
Okay. Anything else for the chief?
Marilyn, thank you. Dr.
you're
Ford,
welcome.
thank you. And
You're welcome.
enjoy.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. That brings item 32, discussion of interim council member and special election for District 1 council member. I think the newspaper probably telegraphed to you the recommendation that I was going to make, but I would very much like us to, next week, after this discussion, vote on something fairly quickly at that meeting as far as an interim council member to open up that process and let that person be selected rather quickly and have a special meeting early in January on the 5th so that we can select that person and get that person in place. The part of the conversation that will happen next week, of course, is we have to approve the special election process. And if we approve that next week, for those listening, that means a special election be held in April. If there's a runoff, hopefully there won't be a need of one, but if there is, that would be held in June. So at this point in time, council, what are your thoughts on appointing and the process of appointing an interim council member?
Who wants to go first?
You do.
Okay. Here we are, December 15th, going to hold a meeting. My goal in this is to get it, have it appointed sometime this year. If we can do it, announce the thing tonight and do it at the meeting on the 22nd, we're already going to be here. I don't see a reason to wait a couple more weeks into January to make that appointment. There's too many things coming up that are too important, and we need a fifth person up here.
I just don't think we're going to miss anything between the 22nd and the 5th, though. We're probably not going to have any meetings between the 22nd and the 5th. I just want to make sure that we give sufficient time for people who are considering it and get the word out.
Well,
it's up to you guys.
The word's out. I
hope the word's out.
I'd say the word's out. There were, press release and every the public knows there's a seat open. And this council shall appoint. I don't see the need to waste a lot of time in appointing that interim. I'd like to get it done sooner rather than later, and perhaps next week would suffice.
Interview and select. It's up to you guys. Chase, what do you think?
Matt, I've had a number of calls about this. Does the appointee, and I've heard mixed reviews, are they required to live in that zone? I know, to run for that office, but I've had calls from some folks outside of the zone and didn't quite legally know how to respond to that.
Yeah, I think so. So this office's prior interpretation has been that that is the case, that they have to live in the district. I think that's consistent with the charter. I would like it to be a little bit more clear, but I think that's the same position that I'll be taking, is that candidate that you're going to select would have to live in the district that they're going to be representing.
I mean, I agree with that. I wanted to be legal when I said that. I would not want to put somebody in there so those folks in that district did not feel represented. But that allows me to, go ahead, Drew, you got something?
Also, in addition to that, the time limit for acquiring residency is you have to be in that district for 12 months, correct?
The residency requirement, the 12-month residency requirement, is to be in the city of Port Orange for 12 months. So there is no separate 12-month requirement for the district-specific provision.
Okay, but if they were going to show an interest and to be appointed, they'd have to live in that district at that time.
Correct. That's the interpretation that we've taken, that if the individual that you're selecting is being considered for the selection for the District 1 replacement, that individual would have to be residing
Okay.
in District 1.
Very good.
And Mayor, if we're talking about, do you mind?
Alan, go ahead.
Sure. If we're talking about qualifications tonight as well, if we do decide to put that out there and say we want, resumes to come in, one of the other things that council decided last time that you might want to discuss tonight is there going to be a limitation on having that person not be able to run for the seat after or not? But I know that was a discussion last time, and you may want to have that tonight as well.
Well, and I think that might come down to our own personal criteria.
Yeah, well, I was going to bring that up. I know we did that, but legally, we can't really require that somebody. You could appoint somebody. They can say, well, I'm not going to run for it, but they get up here, they're certainly free to change their mind, right?
Exactly. I mean, that can be your own kind of personal, what you'd like to see, and you can take them at their word. But I don't have any way to bind them to not run in a future election. That's just something that we have no way to do.
And last time we took applications, are we bound to take applications? We don't have to do that. That's kind of the route.
No, it's silent as to the process. I mean, really, it's your process. You guys have to build that process. So
I think you got to do something so that when we show up with an agenda and we have people to interview, we got to know who we're going to interview. And I'd like to know a little bit. If somebody comes up here that I don't know them, but they've got a terrific background, I think that application will help spur those questions that we need to ask. I think we have to have some sort of process where, like last time, that they apply with the city clerk, and that's our list of names that we have to consider, and then we'll interview them.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we're talking about here with this item. It's really trying to figure out timing, what the process is going to be, where your deadlines are going to fall for that application, if it's an application that you want. So that's kind of what we're trying to get nailed down tonight.
Scott, you want to chime in?
I think you guys are doing quite well.
Okay,
Yeah,
continue to chime in, please.
I would just say that I do think we should move the process with all things going on and everything being considered. I do think we should move the process as effectively and efficiently and quickly along as we can. I know we're coming up on some holidays and we're going to have a gap there. I do think it's probably reasonable to have a period of time where people that are interested can apply like we did last time. I think maybe Robin could interject, but I thought we used the same format or form that we use for other boards of interest, right? Something similar to that. So it doesn't have to be intense. We just need to know, who are you? What, why do you want to do this?
Background.
You think the board application would suffice? I do as well.
I think so. And then, have just like the other boards, they can submit the app and come if they want. If they don't show up, that usually doesn't work in their favor. If they do show up, then we might have a couple of questions here and there, and then, get the ball rolling and make a decision.
Marilyn, isn't it interesting watching us discuss how somebody's going to be sitting in that chair?
Replacing a
Have you
rock
got
star.
some thoughts and suggestions you'd like to give us?
Well, at a minimum, you need to have an application like you do for any of the city boards, because this position arguably does that and more. So you need to know something about the individual. I also think that you do need a time frame so that people know that you're issuing a call for applications, and then you make a determination. You may want to do Zoom, or electronic interviews, January 5th. I mean, I do think there is a reason to move with some degree of speed.
My thought process and the nice thing about January 5th is December 22nd, a week from now, 3 days before Christmas, the availability of interested applicants and their time to fill out that application, the time that the clerk, basically for us to have an agenda for next week, they've got to have those applications on Thursday. Even if we delayed it Friday at the latest, I don't think that it's sufficient time. And we're not meeting any time in between, so it's not like we have an unfulfilled need. I think if we, so if we did that and we advertise that have your applications in by December 30th or 31st, so that we could have 31st is a Thursday. So if we said noon on the 31st, then we could have then you could have something out to us later that day on the 31st, so that we'd have something to read over our New Year's parties that we're not going to.
Can we say the 30th? Close business?
If you want to do the 30th.
Absolutely.
I'm-
Absolutely.
I'm on vacation that week, so I'm not going to be working on vacation.
No.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Yeah, right. So the 30th, and we're discussing this and with your input. The 30th works.
I would appreciate that.
Council, your thoughts on the timing?
I think that's plenty of time.
Noon on the 30th?
That's very appropriate.
Yes.
Noon on the 30th. Okay.
And submit to Robin the
City clerk.
basic application that for our boards and everything.
Where do they get that application?
It's on our website.
Just
They can
the
ask
same
us
one?
for it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, she can get it.
cityclerk@fort-orange.org.
So the timing is the 30th at noon to have applications in. We're using board applications for a selection process that would occur at a special meeting on January 5th. Are we
I
in?
would say the board application and a resume, because the board application doesn't give a whole lot of that history that you guys might want to see.
Okay.
It's pretty brief.
Yeah, we're, okay, board application and resume, I mean, that,
Council, are we in concurrence?
Sure.
Board application and resume.
and, we had that, comment, I don't have any intention to put the restriction on there that they can't run. Like Matt said, you can't stop them from running, it's a constitutional right to run. So whoever gets appointed, if they want to run for the seat, great, and if they don't, that's okay too. But I don't
If
intend
that's
to
your-
support a restriction. I don't want to restrict.
I'm not
them.
going to put that on anybody
Yeah.
up here. I think if you want to use that as your personal criteria, then while you're selecting and interviewing, I think that's
Yeah.
up to you, but I would concur with that unless there's any disagreement. I don't see anybody disagreeing.
Mayor, when we contact, when people apply, should we let them know that not only will they be, I'm assuming, so I'm asking this question, they'll be chosen on the 5th and they will be seated on the 5th, so that they should probably bring their family just in case if they want them
Sworn
to take
in.
pictures?
Sure.
All right.
That's weird.
Hmm.
Sorry.
Okay.
My outside voice.
We did
We
that
did it
last
for
time.
Jack Wiles.
We did that last time and his family wasn't
You're
here.
selected, we're swearing you in, and we might have business on the 5th to conduct anyway.
I don't think I'm going to advise anyone to bring their families, though. That's an awkward walkout.
So would they be seated on the 5th or would they be seated on the 19th?
See them right then and there. I mean, it's an interim spot.
That's right. There's no need to
I'm-
wait.
I'm ready to seat on the 5th.
No need to wait. If we're going to wait all the way to the 5th from now to select them, they're selected.
They don't have to bring their families. I'm just saying if they think they might get chosen, want to have their families here and they're going to get sworn in,
Correct.
they may just want to have them on standby.
If they
just
want
in
to, they
case.
can bring them, but
Yeah,
I wouldn't
I'm not
advise
saying
them.
like they have to be here.
They could always do ceremonial pictures at the next meeting if they wanted.
We can
We're
figure
good
something
with
out to take good care of them one way or the other, but I want that, the idea is that we're seating somebody expeditiously, but at the same time judiciously.
And it's a public meeting, they can have whoever they want.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Any other comments on this? Alan, you got anything else that you need from us on this item?
No, sir, I think we've got what we need, and we can work with Christine to get the word out and make sure you get as many applications as you can.
Council, any comments or questions on this one? I think that we have beat that one pretty good.
Just one quick question for me. What time do you want to start the January 5th meeting? 5:30?
5:30 sounds pretty good.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay. Additional items, city attorney.
Nothing further tonight.
Thank you. City manager recruitment update.
Yes, sir, I don't think I need to go into that. I think we talked about that enough, so I can talk about that next time if we need to. Let's see. Legislative agenda, just wanted to update council. The mayor and I went to the legislative delegation meeting in DeLand this week, and I guess that was yesterday? Wow. And proposed our project for the license plate readers, and also pushed some other items that the League of Cities and other organizations are pushing for reform on internet sales tax and local option fuel tax. If there's anything else that you think that you would like, we have a lobbyist up in at our disposal. If there's anything else you think that would be interesting for us to push this year, please let us know so that we can let them know. And as always, we always push home rule as a general rule, but if there's anything else you want us to push or don't want us to push, please let us know.
And my recommendation for council, if there is anything along those lines, that it be policy oriented, keeping in mind that this is a very tight budget year in Tallahassee.
The only other thing I have is
You're
public
leaving.
public record is public record, and I wasn't really going to put it out there until a contract was signed, sealed, and delivered. But as people may know, on December 8th, the Lake County Board of County Commissioners voted unanimously to hire me as the next county manager in Lake County. So I'm not leaving yet. We have negotiated a contract. It's on the agenda for them on December 22nd. So I have not put in a resignation at this point because I do not have another job. So you may possibly have a vacancy coming up in this role. With that in mind, you don't have a vacancy. However, we do have a new meeting on the agenda for the 22nd, which would be timely, possibly. And but before that date, I just kind of wanted to talk to council about, is there anything that we can provide you if you do have a vacancy coming up to consider on the 22nd at that time? If there's anything that we can provide you to make that decision lickety-split quick, it may or may not be, but...
Oh, it won't be quick.
But if there's anything that we can provide you to make it
You got
easier...
big shoes to fill over there, and now we're going to be filling your shoes. So it's not going to be quick, but it's going to be deliberate. There's no doubt about it. On this item, as far as who the next interim city manager would be, whether it be inside or outside, comments, questions, what do we want or need for next week to have this resolved? Scott, do you have some thoughts?
I do. First, I wanted to say, I just was sitting there thinking, and I realized you weren't here at the last meeting because you were busy.
Yes.
But so I did want to say congratulations to you and your family. It's a big step. I got a couple of chuckles on some social media sites that I happened to scan over as to why is he leaving, and almost like, well, you can get a county manager's job in 3 weeks apparently if you need to, and if people not realizing that that's not exactly how that plays out. But I know this has been something as a career step that you've looked forward to for years and worked on for years, and I couldn't be any happier for you. And Lake County, should you come to terms, they're going to get a heck of a person, and I really mean that. And so I hope that is great for your career and your family, and wish you the very best in that continuing process. That being said, as far as like the interim, I think we need to have whatever options would normally be available in this situation to be with us. If we have internal staff that feel that this is a task that they want to take on, that they are qualified and they are ready to commit to this, I want to know about that. I want to put that out staff-wide. I believe that in some mechanism they need to submit that to you, and then you can disseminate that out to all of the council to say, hey, here's the staff people. Now, for internal staff, I would like to see that pretty quickly. I think your senior leadership team has had time to consider that. I know we've got, Jake stood before us here a couple weeks ago and didn't think there was an entire staff member who couldn't fulfill that role. So that being said, if we have internal staff folks that feel that way and they want to be considered, I'd like to have them forward that to us through you that says, hey, I'm ready, I can do this, here's why, and if you want to have a discussion with me one-on-one, let's do that. That being said, I think we should also know what would it look like if we went outside temporarily, just so that we have that on the radar as well. Because internal staff-wise, I will tell you, while I would love to fill that role because I think it's a great opportunity for many, I also have to know what void does that create, how does that get handled? Because we're not just talking really about one position here. We've got a lot of people going to wear a lot of different hats here for about six months or so, and I just want to make sure we've thought that process out, and we'll make that decision. But as far as like internal staff, sooner than later, if they're interested, it doesn't have to be, a resume or whatever, an email's fine, and then that way the elected body has a chance over the course of a couple of weeks to try to have those conversations one-on-one with them if there's any questions and kind of weigh that all out so that we can make that decision as quickly as possible and get that checked off our list, so to speak, so that as you move forward into January, I don't want there to be this great unknown all the way up to the end, right? There's no need for that. I'd like to have as much overlap.
We cannot.
Right, I'd like to have some overlap there, so those are my thoughts on that.
Drew, your thoughts?
I would pretty much concur with that. If there's internal candidates that have that interest and the desire to do it and are qualified and able to do it, keeping in mind we probably have at least a 6-month time frame. I would suspect about a 6-month time frame to be in that position, assuming you leave the end of January or thereabouts.
I think I would probably provide, once I find out, a 30-day notice.
Okay. So, we're going to need somebody in there, and then Scott's right, we're going to have a void from somewhere else or this or that, then, it's going to be a predicament. I'd also like to know how we would go about filling from the outside. Possible people interested, and see, and again, focusing on somebody with, before we know it, in a blink of an eye, it's going to be budget season, and we're going to need a strong budget financial person with experience to serve in that seat until the permanent manager is selected. So those are my thoughts. I think we can't rush it, but we kind of have to. But we need to get somebody in there, obviously, concurrent with before you leave, and then maybe have a week or 10-day or overlap period where you can kind of get them up to speed, perhaps. Especially if someone comes from the outside the organization. Either way, you're going to have that sit down with them and get them all, up to speed with everything.
Chase?
Well, first of all, echo Scott's comments and congratulating you, Alan.
Yes.
This is a phenomenal thing for you and your family. You look at look at years ago when we had the amount of turnover that we had in Port Orange. Everyone left a mess when they left, and there was a lot to clean up. But we have 3 people departing this city, and every single one of those folks have made it better. They've left it better than where they found it. Marilyn, you, of course, your service is unparalleled to this community. So my congratulations for that. In regards to moving forward, I'll take a different tactic. I'm not interested in looking outside. I'm really not interested in hearing if staffers want. I think that's our job as a council to appoint who we're looking for. I think Jamie Miller did a terrific job in Jake's absence from the first part. However, Scott makes a very strong point. We're going to fill one void by creating another void, and I certainly see that. We're robbing Peter to pay Paul in this situation. At the same time, we're already going looking outside to bring in a new person. I'm not interested in going outside and trying to bring somebody in, get them up to speed for a 5 to 6 month period. So I like the continuity of keeping who we have. We have phenomenal staff in here. Whoever we decide, I think we can go down the line of anyone who can. But at the end of the day, I would be prepared to make a motion at some point to appoint Jamie Miller as our interim.
Marilyn, give us your input.
I would echo what Chase said with respect to not going outside, because I think when you bring somebody in, they've got such a learning curve to figure out the organization. I think it makes much more sense with the allotted time to use existing staff. And while I appreciate Councilman Bastian's comment about the budget and concur, I think the department heads will step up, and I think they all can work together on this. I appreciate that there may be some that are interested in the position as interim city manager, but I do think that Jamie Miller did an excellent job during Jake's last absence, and there would be opportunities for some of the department heads to ride up, if you will, as assistant interim city manager. So I think, there's ways that the team can really exercise opportunities to serve at a higher position while you have somebody who's already served for the last 30 days back in October and did an exemplary job. And I think I'm convinced that during that period of time they all worked as a team, because I think our department heads want everybody to succeed, and especially the city. So yes, there will be some gaps, but I trust them to figure it out. I would encourage looking within only.
It is amazing the creativity that people can have when they're taxed to be creative. And I have got a lot of faith. I think Jake wasn't just blowing smoke. He was saying he assessed it properly. We've got a lot of bench strength, and I do know you deplete it fast when you're filling openings and moving people up, but those create other opportunities too for other people below the department head level to show what they've got and to have some growth opportunities. I think that's a good thing. I really do. I think the reality of it is we all know that while we're going through this, some of the long-term things that we might be working on might get parked a little bit. Something Marilyn described a couple weeks ago is keeping the car in the center of the, heading down the center of the road. Just keep it moving in the right direction. That's not looking for anything extravagant. Don't need any new grand plans. Let's work on. Let's go with what's working now. Whoever that person is. If there's things that do come up, well, then we'll adapt, and we can do that. Personally, I would like to maintain inside, partly because what Marilyn was saying, our timeline is such that by the time somebody does get on board and hired, I think it would take that long for an interim city manager we bring in from the outside, depending on who it is, and all those people are available for a reason. We all know that. It would take them that long just to get up to speed. Now, just want to plant this process in council's mind also. If for some reason the process doesn't go the way we expect it to, and it becomes protracted, then we need to be prepared in the back of our minds to have an alternative plan. Maybe things are working well. Maybe the interim, bringing somebody in from the outside might not be at the city manager level. It might be somewhere lower in the organization. We've got other options for that as well. If we need to beef up help on the inside. So, and maybe it is an interim city manager from the outside. I don't know, but I think in the short term, I think we're already moving rapidly. I think we're moving competently. I think we're handling it the way it is so far. I also know that I want to say whoever it is that has that position, you're going to make some mistakes. An experienced city manager makes mistakes. The only mistake you can make is inaction. if you get off the road a little bit, we'll all come together as a team and get back on the road. But the worst thing you can do is nothing. And nothing doesn't solve anything. So we certainly want whoever that person is, and we will be talking about it, to be prepared to have a plan in mind for what they're leaving behind in their own department as well. And I'm sure that anybody that on staff that's given it some thought probably has already done that.
So it sounds like the consensus is to stay inside, but...
Oh, we can change our mind just to mess with you, but we can change our mind anyway.
Right.
And I think that was part of the reason why I wanted this to be just a discussion item tonight.
Yes.
Is because I want us all to this is too important to make a snap decision.
And you don't have a vacancy yet anyway.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Just saying.
But we can provide, just for background, I know Jamie last time presented some information on if you were looking at external, this is kind of the timeline you're looking at. We can provide that for background. I'll be happy to send an email out to staff and say, hey, if you guys are interested, let me know. Let's talk about it. Send me some stuff, and I'll forward that to council for their consideration, specifically beginning, most likely December 22nd. I'd like to put that as an agenda item on the December 22nd meeting as well, just in case. So we can discuss that then, if that's all right.
And that's fine.
Okay.
I just know that I might have some extra time to do some reading on the 25th for some reason, so that.
It's up to council when they want to make that decision.
Thank you, Alan.
And I do want to point out, Councilman Steltner, thank you for mentioning that, because, everybody thinks like, Jake left, and then Alan decided he was leaving, and then Dr. Ford decided. And so it was kind of funny because, not funny, but after I found out, of course, Mayor, I called you and let you know that the commission had decided what they decided, and then I let council know, and Jake and the crew there knew. And I wasn't really going to say anything until the contract got approved, and of course NPR beat me to it. So I sent an email out to staff that night and our department heads and let them know this is not a conspiracy theory. It's just bad timing. I am so sorry. I applied for this months and months ago. It has nothing to do with Jake leaving. And then, of course, like 30 minutes later, Dr. Ford sent out another email saying she was leaving. I'm like, all right, I don't know what to say.
Alan, just more proof for the rest of us that this can be a slow process for us as well.
Yeah, and two, to the people on the outside looking in, Jake has really developed a really good organization, and I'm really not worried about this organization going forward. Whatever decision council makes on who they're going to lead this organization in the near term. It's going to work out just fine. We're doing really well as an organization. Sure, we have problems just like anybody else, but it's nothing unusual. So,
Alan, can you, just for the irony effect, can you recap for us how you ended up at the city of Port Orange in the first place?
Yeah.
What was the status of the city when that came to?
It was funny enough. Again, not funny, but I am the second. If you consider me a department head, I am the second longest serving department head in this city. Because there was a lot of turmoil before I got here. You had a longtime city manager who left. You had a very brief interim city manager. You had a longer term interim manager. No, you had another manager who hired who did not last that long. Then you had David Harden, who was the interim manager, and it was a little bit, of just serendipity. So at the time I was I was a local government management consultant with a company, and I had moved back to Florida from California, and I was working on a project for West Palm Beach, and somebody on my staff was working on that project. His name was David Harden. And then he left our firm and came here, and he was looking for interim assistant city managers, and we were just throwing him resumes. And then I found out that maybe there's an opportunity there. I've always wanted to be an assistant city manager. And so I said, hey, would it be okay if I took kind of a leave of absence and tried that if he would be interested? So they said, yeah, that's fine. And, he said that would be fine for me to send my resume, and I did. And I started here, and then Jake came on 6 months later, hired me full time, and that brings it full circle.
So we owe David Harden a little bit of thanks too then.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Well,
We owe David Harden a lot of
A lot.
thank yous, because I tell you what, he was the perfect salve in a lot of ways, the right ointment for a lot of things that we were going through at the time to transition. It was a transition time, and we transitioned, and when Jay came in, we took it from there. And I think that's something else I want to put in everybody's head, is that every organization has different life cycles. What might have been the right person for one life cycle, that person might not be the most ideal unless they adapt for the next life cycle. And this organization's moving into another cycle, and partly spurred by Jake's leaving, but regardless, we can decide what we want in the next city manager based on where we want to go. It doesn't have to be, we need somebody that was just like the last guy. You know, the next person, whoever he or she may be, they're going to have their own strengths and weaknesses, but we can decide what it is that is important to us. And that's something that we can give some thought to. Alan, what else do you have tonight?
That's all I have, Mayor. That's enough.
Yes, it was. Thank you. Council committee reports. Art House.
They had a board meeting last Friday. I was unable to attend. But as I reported the last time, they actually have done pretty good this year. And I would just encourage everybody, think about art lessons for kids or even for adults as Christmas gifts. www.arthaus.org.
Okay. First Step Shelter.
No real update tonight. I will be requesting that our executive director comes gives a presentation in the first quarter.
Okay. Alan, along First Step, I noticed that we haven't had any intakes since the safe zone has been implemented. If you, between you and Chase, I'd kind of like to know how that the Chase zone is the safe zone is being Chase zone. The safe zone is being utilized. If we are the only city underutilizing it, or if it's being utilized mainly by one city and not the rest, or just kind of like to know how that is going for the next update.
Sure.
That's how catchphrases are born, right there. It is forever now.
Welcome to the Chase Zone.
I like it.
Roundtable of elected officials did not meet this month. They'll be meeting in January. Port Orange South Daytona Chamber of Commerce. The Economic Development Committee is working with our community development staff. They'd like to work on a handy checklist for small businesses that the chamber can use and utilize to help them with what they need as far as licensing, et cetera, and so forth. So they're working on that. I think it's a terrific project so that the chamber can help our small businesses navigate us a little bit better. And with that, and we did mention earlier that Reggie Hunter is the incoming president for the chamber this year. And with that, unless there's no other business that comes before us, we'll be doing this again in 7 days. Have a good night, everybody. Merry Christmas.